Welcome to the January 14th Select Board meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is minutes from the December 10th meeting. Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Next item is question and answers with Vernon Malik from the cannabis group at the state. Yep.
Yes, please.
Unless you want to come and sit there, that's fine.
I'll go wherever
Whichever was easier for you.
I don't mind standing up. I sat a lot today. My name is Vern Malik. I'm the Deputy Director of Operations at the Office of Cannabis Policy. I oversee the licensing and compliance functions at the office. And I don't have a presentation to give you. I am hopeful that I'll be helpful by answering your questions.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
So, we're trying to get a little bit of an overview on what rights and whatnot the town has and what enforcements that we can do. We've got some situations that some people will speak to in regards to a lot of odor and whatnot from that's causing issues with abutters. And the real question is what can we control, what can you control, and where are those lines?
Sure. So I'm going to start out assuming that we're talking about caregivers, medical cannabis providers. There's an entirely different slate of rules and regulations associated with adult use. And that's an opt-in scenario. So if you haven't affirmatively opted in as a town, then you just don't have those in your community. So I'll focus on the caregiver side of things, although I'm happy to answer questions about both. So with caregivers, the statute says that a municipality can't prohibit caregivers or limit the number of them. So what that means is obviously you can't say we will not allow any caregivers in our community. Caregivers are, by definition, they're people who are licensed to grow medical cannabis, to manufacture it, and to sell it to patients. So you can't prohibit that, and you can't limit the number. So you can't say we're only going to have 3 in town or 5 in town. But you can regulate them. The statute goes on to say a municipality can regulate them. So where those two intersect is what I've seen in other communities anyway is sometimes it's through zoning, sometimes it's through ordinances, where towns might say we're only going to allow medical caregivers to do this in an industrial zone or a light industrial zone. Or we're going to allow it as a home business like we do other home businesses. Works great if you're a town that has zoning. If you don't, then that doesn't help you much. And among those things that, one of the really controversial things gets to be odor. And the state statute does not address odor at all. It doesn't talk about odor. That's intentional. We chose to allow municipalities to deal with odor from cannabis in whatever way is most effective for you. And you can imagine that that's going to vary quite a lot if you're, say, the city of Lewiston versus Raymond. If you're very urban versus very rural or suburban, those kinds of things. And maybe you don't have to worry about the odor because you address it through the zoning and you're only going to allow it in certain parts of the city or town. So we're silent on odor, which unfortunately that drops that entirely in your laps as the municipal government folks. I will tell you that different communities have set different standards. Some have required indoor air filtration, carbon air filtration, and said that there can be no odor outside the business. And they require proof of plans and documentation about what instrumentation is going to be there and things like that. Some have said there can be no odor, but you figure out how you're going to deal with it. Biddeford, as an example, has limited it to an industrial park. And in that industrial park, they require a windsock on the roof of every cultivation building, so that if they get a complaint, they can see which way is the wind blowing, so we know where is this coming from in an adjacent neighborhood. Because what happened is they zoned it, now they've got 10 or 12 or whatever of them together, try to figure out who to blame. That's how they chose to address it. The city of Lewiston said we don't allow outdoor cultivation. It all has to be indoors to control the odor. Some places put restrictions on setbacks and the distance from the property lines and how many, maybe you put distance parameters in for, we're going to require a separation of at least, 1,000 feet or whatever from one to another, things like that to try to limit it. So it really is, you can be as creative as you want on that.
You said you can't limit the amount in the town, but can you limit the number each person has? Like how many clients the caregiver takes on?
So that's a great question. So right now, the way it works is a caregiver can cultivate either 30 mature cannabis plants or 500 square feet of mature cannabis. And when I say mature, I mean cannabis that's budding.
Yep.
Well, 500?
500 square feet or 30 mature plants. That's driven by state statute.
That's per caregiver or per client in the caregiver, under the caregiver umbrella?
That's per caregiver. Now, just for clarification's sake, it used to be that a caregiver could cultivate for up to 5 patients.
Right.
That's no longer the case. A caregiver can cultivate and sell that to any number of patients or to wholesale it out. So there's no more patients or number of patients. One of the things that
But they still can't have over 30 or 500 square feet.
Right.
Okay.
Per caregiver. Sometimes what some places have seen is you might have multiple caregivers at the same location, say a husband and a wife or other family member at the same location, so now you're up to 1,000 square feet at one place. Sometimes we've seen commercial buildings, maybe an old mill or an old factory, or even in some cases old schools have been converted, and those are leased out to multiple caregivers. So you might have 10 caregivers that are leasing a space, and they're all cultivating at one location. So then you get a pretty massive commercial size operation. Those are things that you can zone for to control. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for the most part. And how can you find out how many? Like, I know there's going to be some sort of rules, HIPAA or whatever,
Sure.
about finding out, but how can you find out how many, you don't have to give the names, but how many caregivers there are per place and all that?
Yeah, so I actually have some
Is that through us or through you guys?
it's through us.
Okay.
And I have some really good news about that, actually. Used to be really hard to figure that out because we had confidentiality provisions in statute. Those were revised in the last legislative session. We've now posted on our website a list of all the registered caregivers and the communities that they're operating in, and we update that once a month. So anybody can go on our website and download that Excel document and sort it by the town. So you could get on and look at Raymond and see how many registered caregivers are there, and you can find out who they are. Now, it won't list the address on the public-facing website, but we will release the addresses to the town as part of your efforts to regulate them. A lot of towns say if you're going to be a caregiver in the community, you need to register with us as well. So this way you can check and make sure that everyone that's in your town that's a caregiver through us is registered with you. So it's really turned almost full circle as far as the transparency of that information is concerned.
What's your website?
It's right on our website, yep.
What is your website?
Oh, what is it?
Sorry.
Yeah. Just, you'll have to Google the Maine Office of Cannabis Policy.
Okay.
It doesn't roll off the tongue. It's Department of Administrative and Financial Services, Offices of Cannabis Policy, and there's a couple backslashes in there, and
Yeah,
you know
all
the
right.
drill. And I'll leave my business cards here for, I think I only brought like a half dozen of them, but if you folks have trouble with that, you can always just email me or call me. Sue has my contact info too, to get you that
Did you
information.
have more to add, though, when he asked that question?
No, I think that's about it. I think that covers the basics of it.
Have
Happy
you-
to answer more.
Have you been involved with any towns that have passed ordinance after they established their caregiver residency regarding grandfathering? In other words, if Raymond was to decide they were going to get involved, which is up to the board and the citizens, if we decided we wanted to move in a direction of inside or filtration system or even a flag, I don't know, what problems would there be with grandfathering of the people who are already existing here?
I know that other communities have done that, and it's really an individual decision. I'm not an attorney, and I would strongly urge you to talk to your attorney about that.
You haven't been involved with any of that?
I haven't been involved in any of it, except that what we've done is we've worked with communities that want to grandfather. And here's an example of that in recent history. So the last legislative session closed a loophole around caregiver retail stores. So caregivers had found a way to get around becoming a retail store by claiming to be an office and taking appointments. It was a sore spot for a lot of communities. They didn't want that happening in their town, but they felt like they couldn't stop it. There was a change in the definition of a retail store. It grew to encompass those offices. We worked with communities and we said, tell us what you want to do and we'll work with you. If you say you want a grandfather and you want to allow these people to stay, we'll let them stay. And we'll let it happen while you write your ordinance and get your licensing in line and all that. If you tell us we absolutely don't want to do that, we want them out, we will serve them a notice of violation and tell them they have to cease.
Okay.
So we'll work with you however you want to do it, but how that happens, I'm not clear on the ins and outs of grandfathering.
The second question is traffic. If someone's has a medical facility in their home for medical purposes, is there any restrictions or cars coming all hours of the night, or is any of that, again, does that fall on local ordinances? And how will you enforce it anyway?
Yeah, we don't regulate that. That would be, a concern that I would think the town would take up when you take up any new business coming in and what's the impact on traffic and things like that. I will say that it's depending upon what activities they're going to engage in. If it's a small-scale cultivation of 500 square feet, and that's all they're doing is cultivating or manufacturing, they're probably going to have minimal impact on traffic. If they're going to operate a caregiver retail store, and you might see cars coming and going all day long, that could impact traffic. Which brings me to another point. You can limit whether or not you want to have retail stores and whether or not you want to have manufacturing with what we call inherently hazardous substances. So a caregiver retail store is a pretty blanket thing. We all know what that is. I drove through Wyndham to get here and I passed a bunch of them, right? So you have to opt in. You have to say affirmatively as a town, we want to allow caregiver retail stores. So you control that part of it. You can't control the cultivation piece beyond what we've talked about, but you can control that. And the manufacturing side, some manufacturing of cannabis involves utilizing inherently hazardous substances. And those are butane, propane, heptane, and a few others. Ethanol's not one. Now, some manufacturing doesn't use any of those, flammable and explosive gases. we do say that the community can control whether or not you want to have inherently hazardous manufacturing happening in your town. So we would again look to you and say, do you approve this or not?
And that could apply to the medical.
It does apply to the medical.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Other questions up here? Okay. Did you want
Yeah, it's just, as far as
to? You need to
Stand
get
up.
up it, and you get up, you need to identify yourself.
yeah, I'm Ray Richardson. I live on 84 Tenny Hill in Raymond, and I had spoke to this gentleman here. As far as the manufacturing, that's an issue. I mean, and as far as the
Please
setback,
speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry. As far as the setbacks and the manufacturing, because my neighbor, he manufactures what's called raw melts. He breaks it down into I guess it's a hash or a liquid substance. That's what he does. And as mentioned in the previous time I was here, he's erected 2 huge greenhouses that are probably 80 feet long. Do you have anything on that as far as that is concerned?
Yeah, I can talk to those things.
Okay.
So, just to circle back, not all manufacturing is inherently hazardous, and the manufacturing that goes on at 90 Tenny Hill Road is not inherently hazardous substances being used there. Sometimes what folks will do is they'll utilize pressure and ice water for extraction. There's a, depending upon what they're making, that's the preferred method. And hash rosin is one of those that doesn't utilize the hazardous methods. And that's the only extraction that's going on at 90 Tenny Hill. And we have inspected that as recently as October and confirmed that. And related to greenhouses, hoop houses and construction, things like that, those are all up to the municipality to regulate. If you regulate whether somebody builds a new building or not, or whether or not they construct a temporary structure, or whether it's a permanent structure, all of those things we would rely on you all to look to and to talk to. We would just be interested in whether or not what they're doing in those hoop houses exceeds their license limits.
So in that investigation in October or wherever, they were under their square footage and plant numbers and all that, or at or under?
Yeah, they were not. There were some violations that were identified. They were significantly over their plant count or square footage, and that's being reviewed right now for administrative action. So that was a violation that was identified. But manufacturing, they were not in violation of anything there.
Well, along that line of question, it seems like every statement brings another question. Once they have a violation, once one is involved, does it make a more frequent investigation or inspection? In other words, if they clean up what they're doing wrong, will you go in a year from now and make sure it's still maintained? I'm curious.
Generally, we do that, yes. I mean, in this particular instance, 90 Tenny Hill, I think we've been to every year for the last 3 years.
Oh,
Sometimes based on complaints, sometimes based on inspections. We're tracking right now to get to every caregiver about every other year for an inspection. If we don't get any complaints and nothing else happens, just by demand and resource availability. But in this particular case, we do make an effort to return to places that have violations and try to work with them, get them into compliance, and help them stay in compliance if they want to.
thank you. That's very good knowledge. That's good to know.
Sean?
Sean McKillop, 84 Main Street. Vern, for short? Sure. Thank you for coming. A couple questions. I'm going to kind of fire them off quick because I do have a couple. This is only in relation to the medical caregivers. First thing I want to read is Declaration of Restrictions and Protective Covenants, which is pretty common in Maine. No lot shall be used for any commercial purposes, but this restriction shall not prevent the owner from said premise from the practice of a profession, craftswork, artistic endeavor, or similar occupation, which shall be conducted within a private residence. There shall be no commercial or business signs upon the premise. Going to the first thing, commercial purpose. Still sounds like commercial purpose. I understand that the state is giving this order, saying this is okay. But this is in direct violation of people's protective covenants. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so when we look at licensing caregivers, location-based things are usually addressed at a municipal level. The only time that we would look at locations is if we were looking at a caregiver retail store, and we would just ensure that that is at least 1,000 feet from from any school, any K through 12 designated school. So things like protective covenants, local code, zoning, all those things would be handled at the municipal level, or maybe in the case of protective covenants at a civil level. We don't read anything into those. It's not mentioned at all in statute as a restriction that we could enforce.
When it comes to hazardous material, you don't have any kind of fire prevention standards? It's just you can do this thing, and are there any codes or guidelines about fire prevention?
Sure. So fire prevention is deemed to be a responsibility of the community, of the local fire department. We work with the fire marshal's office and with local fire departments whenever we're asked, but it doesn't really become a direct focus of ours until we get into inherently hazardous substance extraction. Those facilities generally employ what's called a C1, D1 room, which is explosion-proof, has fire suppression system built into it. The electrical outlets in the room are at different heights to accommodate gas reactions and things like that. So it gets pretty technical there. We require engineers to sign off on and approve the design and the installation. And I think every municipality that's approved IHS extraction manufacturing has a fire department and that has adopted the NFPA, which has a section on it now related specifically to cannabis cultivation and manufacturing. So those are areas where we rely on municipal approval processes to address. And that's something that has been strengthened by our transparency with the recent change I mentioned, where now if you're the fire chief, you can log on and look at and find out exactly where all these places are if you want to inspect them, or if you have some municipal basis to inspect them, then you can at least know where they are. And that has been a sore spot with some fire chiefs over the years when a cultivation catches fire. Which is not uncommon. I'm sure you've all seen it in the news. It can be catastrophic. So that's the way we work with those folks.
I got two more real quick. Mr. Chair, I got a question for you. I already know the answer, but these medical caregivers, how does the town benefit financially? Is there a benefit to them?
No.
How does the state, can you tell me how the state benefits from it?
Well, the state charges an annual fee for registration, and for a caregiver cultivating 500 square feet, I think it's $1,200 or $1,500. Don't tell my boss, I'm not sure. But it's either $1,200 or $1,500 for a licensing fee. And then...
Per caregiver?
Yes, yep. And then it's just the regular sales tax that's applied. It's the... cannabis at retail is taxed at 5.5%. It's taxed at a much lower rate than medical, which goes into the general fund, and then the community benefits from, the revenue sharing, statewide.
And then last question, I appreciate your time, Vern. If a citizen feels that there's been a violation of the 500 square foot rule / 30 mature plants, who do they contact for that? Me. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? When you're looking, you said about, you look at communities as to where they are regarding schools. How does that pertain to daycares?
Daycares don't count. Unless,
Seriously?
Yeah, you don't count.
I know.
You don't count.
I like a home daycare because I've been doing it for like 29 years. So yeah.
yeah, so they don't count by state statute. State statute says K through 12. So daycares are not included in that state prohibition. I will say that the municipalities have restricted that, and they have included, I've seen them include churches, daycares, playgrounds, ball fields, things like that. So that's another area that you may want to address on a local level, depending upon, how
Okay, thanks.
it impacts you locally.
It's okay. Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. The town of Raymond has ordinances that regulate home occupations. I guess my question would be, and the rules regulations do include noxious fumes. So I'd ask, Vern, does the state consider medical providers as a home occupation?
We don't address that. The term home occupation doesn't appear anywhere in statute or in rule. Certainly, some individuals do it at home, at their residences, but whether it's a home occupation or not is something that's left to the local municipalities to determine.
So then I guess what I just suggest is that as far as considering any ordinance development, that there are already ordinances regarding home occupations that include noxious fumes.
Great.
Craig Messenger, 342 Raymond Hill Road. Mr. Malik, thank you for coming. 2 things. One, I have to put the board on the spot and ask why this is a business in the town of Raymond in a residential zone. I've already checked with Chief Tupper. He has no record of any inspections ever being done at that facility. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Malik, your rules and regulations make the town aware that this business is going in. Who's done an inspection in this place besides the state? Is there any record in the town? I don't know if anybody has that answer, but it behooves me to think that in a residential neighborhood, there's a medical marijuana facility that was approved by the town. What are we going to do about it? Did you remember your question? Okay, thank you.
Well, can I ask something on that? Sorry. I guess the question is because to me, if we're going to start putting anything in, it would technically grandfather, but I know Dennis was bringing something up regarding grandfathering. And then is it considered a home business? And if it is a business, does it have to have a license? Does it have to have the inspections? Does it pay for a fee? What exactly?
And that's really code's question at this point, and as it happens, our code officer is on the call, on Zoom rather. Chris, can you get on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Have you been listening to the question?
Yeah, I've been watching the whole thing so far.
Good, thank you.
Did you hear my questions?
Yes, I did. So originally, when this operation at 90 Tenny Hill came in, they did get a home occupation permit for growing in a garage, which is by ordinance allowed. However, they expanded to outside with another caregiver, maybe the wife or partner, I'm not sure. But when I looked at this many years ago, when it was grandfathered, I think in 2018, it was a home occupation totally within a garage, which met the definition of a home occupation. So We could look into that. I probably need to talk to our attorney about that, but it's something that we could look at. Whether that's a violation of our ordinance, I'm not sure, because I look at marijuana as almost like an agricultural use, except for the odor. And to address Peter's comment about the odors, that wasn't a concern, because in an indoor facility, which was reviewed in 2018, they could do odor control. And they probably could with an outdoor facility if it was enclosed. But that's something that we'd have to look into in the future.
Well, can I follow up with that, Chris? I guess I wasn't talking
Sure.
about 90 Tenny Hill. I'm looking at, especially now that this list is out there, that you can definitely figure out where. Do we in this town ask for that permit? Do they have to come in and see you to get a permit for it, and you check out the regulations, or do you check out the regulations as far as their? Because they'll go through the state first, correct, to get it, and then what if the town says no in that area? Am I
So-
making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no, it's a great question. So if I'm gonna parrot it back to make sure I'm answering the right thing. So the scenario that you're proposing is that somebody applies to us.
Yep.
We either have issued or we're about to issue a caregiver registration certificate saying you can grow your 500 plants or your 500 square feet, rather, at this address in this town. And we bless that.
Yep.
But the town says, no, you're not authorized to be there. It's not zoned properly. It's a violation of town ordinances, those things. That's the scenario that we're talking about, right? Okay, so typically, we don't check with the municipality about what the local regulations are. If they meet our criteria, we'll issue it. One thing that we have never done before with medical is to notify the town that we're issuing a caregiver registration. We notify the town when we're issuing, you'll know if we're issuing a retail store or an inherently hazardous substance license, because there's a form that you all have to fill out and send back to us to say you agree. But if it's just caregiver activity, then we don't typically notify a community. Now, this is something that we didn't notify because we couldn't notify prior to last November when the law changed. Now that we've had that law change, I'm going to make a note and bring it back to our policy team about whether or not we should notify a community to say, FYI, we're issuing or we have issued this to somebody in your town so that you'll know. Because in all fairness to you all, you wouldn't have any way of knowing that we had issued something. You just wouldn't
check
know.
daily.
Well, you couldn't even check daily, because under the old statute, if you
No,
called
I mean
up,
now.
now you could look daily. You'd have to call me every day and check, because we only update the website once a month. Although we are making some changes to that, so it'll update more closely to real time. But for right now, it updates once a month. And yeah.
So I guess to follow up one more time on that one, is yes, that's exactly what I was asking. So now what happens is, because there's a gap between the town and what we do and what you do, and no fault of either side, but because things change all the time and things get updated. So say in our case, I don't know if they really would be grandfathered, because it might be done in an area where it wasn't allowed before. So we may be able to tell them that they can't do it and they have to stop. And it would be, I believe it would be home rule would govern there. Am I wrong on that, Ralph?
Well, it gets sticky, because it really comes down to how the ordinances get written, because that's where
Right.
that's where the enforcement side comes. Because if you just go and pull that from someone that had been in existing, you know you're going to be in court.
Well, and I know, and I'm not saying just pull it. I guess what happens is there's got to be some way to make that medium, and if there is a problem area, wherever it is, you know what I mean, and it's affecting our policies, our ordinances and stuff like that, but we weren't allowed to know about it before, so now we've got to come up with some kind of a
Well,
remedy.
those licenses are renewed yearly, right?
They are,
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, but they're renewed through you, not us.
right.
And so we may have to,
But if the license has to be renewed in the
That's what
the
the
local
ordinance
ordinance
goes in.
changes,
Then they're not grandfathered.
then they wouldn't be in compliance with the local ordinance, so you couldn't issue the new license, could
Right.
you? Or-
Well, we could, and we probably would. And let me explain why, because that sounds horrible.
no, we get it, because it's your rules and not what the local rules are.
Yeah, exactly. So these are situations where the two things are siloed. So the statute and the rule for the state are siloed, and the ordinances and codes for the town are siloed. So if it violates both, then we can do it.
Right.
If it violates our stuff, we can do it. If it violates yours, you have to take action on it.
You're on your,
So that's where you would come in with, a notice of violation, cease and desist orders, things like that, daily fines and things, whatever you normally do for, businesses or residents that find themselves outside of compliance.
But with what you just said and what the code officer said, if it's expanded from the garage when they took a permit, and the permit was pulled for that garage, that gives us at least a stand on requiring certain ordinance changes, if they went through the ordinance field, to say it's no longer a home, right? No longer a home, it's moved into the yard. If it's 80 feet or 60 feet, I don't know whether it's exaggerated or not, but 60-foot greenhouse sounds pretty commercial and pretty much larger than the garage. So we may, in fact, be able to even stop at some of it now, in my opinion. Maybe Chris can answer that, but at
Chris has
least,
got his hand up anyway.
yeah.
wait. Chris?
I'm back. So the problem we have right now is we don't have a real clear definition on, or a way to enforce noise or odors. So if we want to enforce this, we're going to have to write something into our ordinance that relates more specifically to an agricultural use that causes odors. I'm not opposed to that, but if I took something like this to court now, I don't think we would have anything to stand on, because we don't have a measurement of what a noxious odor is. And for setbacks and things like that, it needs to be specific and written into an ordinance, which we don't have. So I'm glad to work with the town, the state, but this has been a moving target for many, many years. And now the state is kind of get fine-tuned, and it's probably time for the town to probably look at this and say, hey, what do we want to do? Do we want to expand our home occupation ordinance, or do we want to come up with an ordinance that prohibits noxious fumes or odors? How do we measure that? How do we enforce that? You can go by a marijuana facility and smell marijuana on one day, and you go 10 days after that and you don't smell anything for 10 days. So it depends on the way the wind's blowing, what stage the crop is at. I mean, this is it's a complicated thing. It's not like growing corn in your backyard. So we can look at this, and I'm willing to look at that with the board and come up with a solution, but it's going to take some massaging and working with the state and the town attorney to come up with an ordinance that can protect abutters and respect their rights. I agree with that.
So when you give somebody that because I'm taking a lot of notes here, main caregivers, and they get the 30 plants, in that case, us as a town does not know what each person has because of the requirements from before that we weren't allowed to know. I do a home daycare and I have 12. If I up it, I'm in a whole new category.
I think they know now, right?
Oh, wait.
It's posted now.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh.
Yeah. So does that get posted? Do you post out as far as what category they're in as far as a business? Because then that way what happens is the town needs to know also, you know, if we're going to get involved with it. It kicks you into, I guess, like a different category. And what is considered a massive category as far as the home business?
No, it goes by caregivers on each individual one.
Well, I know, but like he's talking about that other guy that had more than the 30 plants, and he had more than that. So meanwhile,
But you can have like 8 caregivers under one roof. And that's what I'm saying. I think the state website now shows, hey, 80, 90, Tenny Hill, whatever it is, and then there's 11 caregivers there.
Right.
They're allowed now 30 times 11 or 500 square feet times 11.
so there's nothing higher than that, I guess is what I'm saying. When you're doing a caregiver, you can only have the 30 plants or
Right.
the 500. There is no step up from there, correct?
There is a step up from there from medical, but it's categorized as a dispensary,
Okay,
and a dispensary does require municipal opt-in.
okay,
So you have
okay.
to have
Nope.
opted in.
All right, so that would be that next step. Okay,
And
yeah.
a dispensary license is an unlimited cultivation number. So,
Okay, yeah.
but, you know, I mean, just to give you an example, I mean, one of the first places I visited when I joined my current position was a dispensary cultivation in Auburn that had 10,000 square feet of mature plants growing inside the building. And I stood outside and couldn't smell anything until I walked inside. So it can be controlled. Even in large scale, it can be controlled.
There was a gentleman here that said that, and yeah, you couldn't smell it too much in the building, I think, if it's the same one either.
Oh, you could smell it in the building for sure.
Yep.
Once you got inside, you could smell it. But they were filtering the air before it went outside and
Okay.
using really good carbon filters and changing them frequently. So
Okay.
there is one thing that I wanted to flag for you, and it sparked my memory when somebody mentioned December of 2018. So there is part of the statute that talks about businesses that were in operation prior to December 13th, 2018, with municipal approval. So if you knew about it and you licensed them and approved them, then you can't go back and take that away now. But that's only if it was prior to 2018.
So there's-
And
Okay.
it spells out what you had to have done in order to approve it, if you will. It specifically says issuance of a occupancy permit is not approval. You had to approve, and you have to have minutes from a meeting that say specifically, this address, we are approving this activity at that location.
Does that get voided if there's a violation between 2018 and now?
It doesn't.
No.
No.
So you can have violations and then just go back and you're still grandfathered in?
Well, if you have enough violations, then we will revoke or suspend your license.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's something that we take very seriously. You know, multiple violations are not looked favorably upon. We work with folks to try to get them into compliance, to guide them, and to show them what they were doing improperly. But when that fails, or if we have serious violations impacting public health or public safety, then we will move to suspend or revoke.
Other questions? Anybody?
Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. So I guess I have a question for Chris, because he's talking about agricultural businesses. But when I think of agricultural businesses, and correct me if I'm wrong, agricultural businesses are not home-based businesses. Like agricultural businesses are like farms, right? Or am I wrong in that?
It's Christian.
The question was for me?
Yes.
Jennifer, I would say that we don't have a definitive definition differentiating from growing marijuana or an agricultural product. So I don't know how to answer your question other than I think we need to further the definition in the future to make that work.
So I'm looking at the ordinance right now for home occupations, and it says it shall be carried on wholly within the dwelling or accessory structure. So,
And that's exactly what I said.
yeah,
In 2018, when they applied for the home occupation, they did it within the garage. They expanded without our knowledge to grow outside with another caregiver to do the 30 plants. So I'm not sure exactly how that relates, but it wasn't something that was disclosed to the town in 2018. And now, obviously, it's raised its head. We'll have to look into that.
because, and that ordinance also says no exterior storage of materials. So even if they had, stuff outside, they can't have exterior storage of those plants outside if we're following our ordinance as written. So I guess now my question, I'm sorry, I forgot your name from this. Vern. Hi. So I guess my question is for you. So Teresa raised the issue that if the state issues the permit outright, right, because they met your qualifications, but that the location, if, say, they pass an ordinance on zoning and say, we don't want this in residential zones because of kids or schools or daycares, or the veteran who came here to raise the complaint who said he can't sit outside and he has breathing issues from combat, et cetera, and he can't run his air conditioner and he can't enjoy his home. So if they did a zoning that said you can't have it in a residential zone, we want you in this zone or this zone. So you issue the permit, it violates the town's ordinance, so like they still get the permit, but conditional to moving it to an approved zone, correct? Like your permit doesn't override their zoning, correct?
True.
Okay, I just wanted clarification on
I
that.
think it's, but we have to police it. They're not going to police it at that point. You know what I mean? That's the town's policing, not the state's.
Right, but my guess is that, like, so when people apply for permits with you, are those annual as well, or are they one and done?
They don't apply with me, but.
No, you, the town, you as the representative of the town.
Jennifer, I
It
can
would
answer
depend
that.
on how the ordinance is written.
If you do a home occupation, it's a one and done. Now, if you expand that use and you don't come to us, that's another matter. The situation is, yeah, they were approved in 2018 to do what they're doing. State law and all these ordinances the state enforces have changed. It's my understanding that if somebody wants to do something like the outdoor grow, that you're considering a commercial use, not a home occupation, that would require local authorization to be signed by the municipality. And I believe that the gentleman that's here tonight can probably answer that. But I wouldn't sign a local authorization form unless we had an ordinance.
Okay, and then what are the consequences of violating our ordinances?
Depends on what the
Well, we
ordinance
could
says.
do a NOV, stop work order, depending, if we got the okay to do that with the town attorney. We have never got to that point with this situation, but
Yeah.
maybe something we need to look at.
But
And is-
the ordinance defines the penalty.
Right.
So so in the ordinance, you define what the penalty would be for violation.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yes, please.
So, just to further clarification, and just to explain how it is, because I kind of feel bad, like, I don't want you to think we leave you high and dry. Once we issue the permit, we walk away. There is a box on the application that the caregiver fills out that says, I am in compliance with local regulations, with all local regulations. So they have to check that and affirm that to us. We don't check it ourselves. Because we couldn't. We're down to just under 1,700 caregivers. We couldn't possibly research every town's ordinances and make that interpretive call. But what we do is if we issue it and you let us know that this caregiver is out of compliance with our zoning or whatever, our other ordinances or code things, we will partner with you. We will inspect. We will investigate that violation for them saying to us they were in compliance. We've had really good success getting voluntary compliance from caregivers because, frankly, their decision is to either face the wrath of the town with daily fines and being hauled into court. And my experience with that is that usually the town wins. And then the other thing that they face is revocation by us, where we can say, you are committing a violation because you're not following the codes that you said you would, you swore that you did, and we can revoke for that if we have to. And they don't want to be revoked because that means they can't do anything for a year. So, we can work with you to resolve some of these. I don't want you to think we're leaving you high and dry like that. And just to back up what your code enforcement officer said, these statutes and regulations have changed every year since cannabis was legalized. Every year the legislature makes changes. Some years, like last year, were very dramatic changes. Other years it's minor tweaks and edits. But they change every year, and it's very confusing for law enforcement, for municipal operators, and for caregivers, people in the program that want to be compliant. So that's a real thing, too. Just wanted to throw that out.
Now, that raises another question for me, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but it seems to lead that more information you have, the more curious I become. We know that we get annual licenses for bars and restaurants because of the alcohol and the inspections required. Do any of the towns, do you know of, that if we just put a simple ordinance in saying that we want to permit an annual permit, marijuana is close to alcohol. I mean, they both affect the brain. And is it possible to have a annual permit like it was a restaurant, where we would have to have an inspection every year and at least get a fee for that, like we do the restaurant, and it would pay for the inspection? Do you know of any towns that do that?
I think that's very common. That's like the lowest bar. If a town's going to regulate, that's the first step that they always take.
Thank you.
And it doesn't necessarily, the policy isn't usually driven by the liquor comparison and on-site consumption, because there isn't any of that authorized.
Right.
But it often hinges with fire regulations and concerns around that because of the cultivation and manufacturing of cannabis.
Mr. Chair, if I may? Along those same lines with the liquor license, the people that need to renew their license have a state form. It's brought to the town has to okay their application before the state will issue their permit. I would humbly like to suggest that you consider that for caregivers, because that gives the town the opportunity of letting you know and not depending on the homeowner to look at ordinances that are very complicated. They aren't experts in whether they comply or not. And to just check off a box doesn't necessarily mean they've been in our codes office and said, hey, I'm going to grow stuff.
Right. I appreciate that feedback. I think it's a great recommendation. We do that for many levels of licensure. Mm-hmm. Everything in the adult use realm has that as a piece of it. Mm-hmm. Nothing moves without municipal approval. Mm-hmm. Dispensaries don't move without municipal approval. Mm-hmm. Retail stores for caregivers don't happen without town sign-off, mm-hmm. and neither does manufacturing, inherently hazardous. The caregiver is the one thing that we're not allowed by statute to do that. Mm-hmm. So we'd need to make a law change in order to do it and make it happen.
So we'd need to talk to a legislator?
We need to talk to a legislator, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And,
we have one.
Oh, somebody got set up and I didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I thought Chris has his hand up.
Yeah, I would just add to that with the commercial uses, our storefronts that are in the commercial zone and in the industrial zone, yeah, they are required to get annual inspections from the fire department. A home occupation, that's a different animal, and I'd let Wayne address that, or Bruce. I don't know if they have the authority to go into a home occupation and do an inspection, But it's something we could put in an ordinance, but right now, I don't know if that's something that we can enforce.
Bruce, did you have some?
Is that, yeah. In 2018, we did not have this ordinance in place, but in 2020, I do believe NFPA 1 was adopted by the legislative body of the community here at a town meeting, which allows us to, and it does cover grow operations as well as multitudes of other institutions and et cetera. In that National Fire Code, it allows you to adopt permits, permit fees, et cetera for that, but it gives you some teeth in the area of grow operations. It gives you some teeth with pressure vessels, the compressors that they're using in this particular facility to run their operation. I would suggest, where it doesn't cover odors, et cetera, but I would suggest at this point that what we do is we sit with, and Wayne can cover this more, he's probably more familiar with what's in the code itself, where I don't use it that much, but we can sit with Chris and figure out where we should go from here, because between what we have already in place and this NFPA 1 code, which has been in place for several years now, we may be able to put those two together, get the permit fees that we're looking at, et cetera, get those approved by you, and be able to have some teeth with these type of occupancies. I know anything that went into place now we have some teeth with, but not when this thing went in, and probably likely not a home occupation. So we'd really need to look at those particular pieces of it, and it looks to me like this has grown past what a home operation would be considered, especially with their expansion of that business without approval of the town. So I think maybe in the next week here we ought to sit down and go through it and come up with some suggestions to bring back to the town for fees and permits and an action plan. I think that would be a very good thing to do at this point.
Any other comments and questions?
So this is for Chris. So you're saying that he was permitted for his inside grow for the garage, but not for the outside grow. Is that correct?
I'd say in 2018, there was no upgrow facility.
But he was permitted to grow inside, but not outside, right?
Correct.
So he's in violation now then, growing outside, right?
I don't know that. I'm saying that.
But he was never permitted.
They've been growing outside.
But he was
I don't
never
know
permitted
when
to
they
grow
started-
outside.
Well,
That's what you just said. You said he was never permitted to grow outside, just inside his garage. But then he expanded on the outside, which he was never permitted. And now he's got two greenhouses.
What I'm saying is, back in 2018, 19, 20, I'm not sure when he started growing outside. I don't know what the ordinance was. What you just heard was this has been a moving target. I'm not saying they're in violation or not. I really don't know. I know they grow outside, but the majority of the business, when we approved the home occupation, was inside. There was nothing outside. But the state did allow caregivers to grow outside. It's complicated.
And the town doesn't have a say on permitting them on the outside?
Town does not.
We don't have an ordinance.
We don't have an
that addresses
ordinance
that.
on, at this point.
Mr. Chair, it sounds like we're moving in that direction, though.
Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. But we do have that ordinance under the home occupation ordinance that says that they can't do things outside. It's within the dwelling only, not, no.
Keep in mind that the situation right now is approved by the state. It is not approved by the town. The caregiver license was given by the state, and it's meeting the state requirements. So in order to address that, we have to then craft an ordinance that would work with with the state requirements that we could enforce that way, because it's outside specifically the home, that home setup. It's now a caregiver, which was set up and licensed by the state.
But she's saying under the ordinance we have right now.
And he was approved
Yes,
under
it
home.
has moved outside. What is the ordinance that you were looking?
Okay, so it is Chapter 300 Land Use, Article 9 Minimum Standards, subsection 300-9.2, Home Occupations. The home occupation shall be carried on wholly within the dwelling or accessory structure. That's A. C says there shall be no exterior display, no exterior sign except as expressly permitted by district regulations of this chapter, no exterior storage of materials, and no other exterior indication of the home occupation or variation from the residential character of the principal building.
But Jen, what you're looking at is just all home occupations altogether?
I understand that, but you gave him a permit under the home occupations, and the state has said we don't have that home occupation rule. And when the state is in direct conflict with the town, it's up to the town to enforce. So if he has violated the home occupation, which is what you permitted him under, then he's in violation.
But what happens is that home occupation, if you're reading it the way you are right now, that everything has to stay inside, correct? Mm-hmm. Then I'm a home occupation. I go outside with the play yard and stuff like that. So that is pretty much saying, so what I'm saying to you is it have anything to do with marijuana growth in that thing you're looking at?
No, there's nothing specific about marijuana growth, but you're saying you permitted.
I know, because what you're reading there is pretty much saying that I'm in violation. No, that's what I'm saying.
And
that does not work.
I also didn't look through. I also didn't look through every single ordinance to see if there's separate ordinances involving daycares. We were talking about home occupations because at the last meeting it was determined that the reason this person had a permit was a home occupation, and maybe that was the only way that the select board could regulate, and that's why we were having Vern from the state come and talk to us about it. And everything that I've heard Vern say today is that if the state and the town are in conflict, if he's violating an ordinance within the town, then you do have enforcement within the town. And what you did was you issued a permit with respect to a home occupation. So if the home occupation, Chris said, was understood it would be grown in the garage only. Now it's moved outside, right, to the point where the veteran who came and complained months ago said, I can't breathe, I can't sit on my porch, I'm a combat veteran, I have breathing issues. Any more than if you had them sitting next door to your daycare, I don't think you'd want your children breathing that in. Any more than the fact that, we owned a business for 12 years, for alcohol and substance abuse. I don't think anybody who bought their house and lived in it for 30 years who was in recovery wanted to trigger a relapse because they were smelling someone's marijuana that was outside of their home-based business in the garage and was now being, out in the backyard with the wind taking it next door. So what I'm saying is I think, and that's not a question for me, or I mean, it's a question for you and the attorney, but based upon everything I heard today, you do have an ordinance in terms of home-based business occupations. If, there is no specific marijuana business ordinance and the permit was given under home occupations, and if they're in violation of the home occupation permit that you gave them, then I think you do have recourse, but you'll have to talk to the attorney. I just wanted to make the point because this gentleman said, I don't understand why it's allowed outside, inside, and you do have an ordinance addressing that under the home occupation.
I'm just saying that ordinance is conflicting because, again, I've got a home ordinance that I do take the kids outside and I do store stuff outside, but it is conflicting because what you're saying to use it in basis of that conflicts with what I have. So that ordinance should probably be looked at. Do you know what I mean?
And again, I only looked at this one ordinance. We may have an ordinance regulating daycares as a separate business under homemade that has different regulations for that. But an absent one that says specifically marijuana, if it's under home-based occupations, that's where your authority lies at the moment, is what I heard Vern say.
So I'd like to make a comment about that, Jennifer.
Okay.
So you're right. We have what we call dual jurisdiction. The state has jurisdiction, the town has jurisdiction. The town opted not to opt in. So we didn't write any specific ordinance regarding medical marijuana or adult use marijuana in the town. The state has moved along in the last 6-8 years, and they've moved to regulate more thoroughly these types of operations. We're not in line, you're right. So this is what we're discussing, and this is where we have to look forward and come up with a town ordinance, if the select board decides to come up with an ordinance that is in line with state regulation and our regulations as a town. So, this, like I said earlier, this is a moving target. I have no opposition to, working on this issue. It's just we've opted not to do it. So tonight we're talking about, does the select board want to move forward and have an ordinance that does regulate these types of facilities? They're not required to. You guys don't have to do anything. You can opt out, and we're going to revert back to state law. And that's what we've been relying on for the past few years because we don't have an ordinance. So it's a hot topic. I get it. But, it's something that it's a great discussion.
Other discussion?
Not with him, I guess, as a board. We got to discuss what we want to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all those answers.
Thanks so much.
So, what we'll do is put it on the next agenda.
So I was thinking.
Because in ordinance, it would have to go to the planning board.
Yeah, we'd start there and then come back to us.
To work an ordinance anyway, so we'll move that onto the next meeting. Next item, consideration of liquor license renewal for Ala Mexicana.
And Jose is here.
Yeah. Hello, Jose Chavez again.
And we did get his application through the state. I don't know if Wayne has had a chance. We just got it Friday, so I would doubt that Wayne has had time to do anything as yet.
Wayne, have you?
We plan to do the inspector tomorrow morning, 10.
Oh.
Yes, he's correct in that. We've scheduled an inspection for tomorrow morning.
Okay.
All right.
There's an odor that comes out of there too, though.
Yep.
It makes me hungry. I mean, I have an ordinance on that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the liquor license, correct?
Yeah, renewal.
Renewal.
Pending the
Right, exactly. Subject to the inspection tomorrow morning
Yeah.
with Wayne.
Is there a second?
Second.
Satisfactory inspection.
Right. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? No? Motion is carried.
The state has a new system, and there isn't anywhere on there for you to sign, and they don't have a separate form for you to sign.
So what do you do? Just give it back to you?
Yeah, I guess. It's brand new, this whole system, so.
All right, cool.
I can speak to that. My understanding is correct, that since every municipality handles the renewal of liquor licenses completely different from anybody next door to them, the state just has this new database. And so when he applied and hit submit, I get an email saying there's that,
Yep.
and all of there's the map
Yep.
of the premise, and he has to upload a current state food license to show that that's current. So it's all the usual questions that were encompassed by the 13-page paper application that we used to use, and I printed out the actual application part to put in there, and then what I have to do is now that I have your decision on it, I have to go in and into the state system, the database, and say what the different steps are of approval. So tomorrow morning I can go in and say it's approved contingent upon the inspection, and then just keep the state up to date on things that way. So there's not a spot for you to sign because some municipalities don't do that. Some municipalities, the state handles it and it doesn't even go to the select board or council. So the state had to be really generic to
Okay.
cover all the bases or the differences. And
Just want to make sure I didn't miss something there. Thanks, Mel.
We're good?
Next
All right.
item.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can bring samples.
I know.
Yeah.
We needed some tacos there.
Yeah.
Next item, consideration of setting
Quesadillas.
Castletop Park fees for 2025. Joe?
And I don't believe Joe's here.
Yeah, he is.
Was.
Oh, he
Right
is.
there.
Oh, there he is.
I see
Sweet.
you.
Live from the conference.
So you're up.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm presenting a proposal for increasing our fees. We haven't increased any of our daily fees since I've been here, and we've increased the membership rate. I think when I first got here, we actually just, I believe, separated a resident and non-resident fee, so we didn't really increase it there at all. Partially, labor costs has gone up. It's 29%. We started, it was around $12 an hour minimum wage, and now we're at 15. Now we're paying, starting out about $15.50 for our park attendance. That's one reason, and the other reason is depending on our weather, kind of dictates how much revenues we make in a year, and on a low end, it can be close, and we might not make as much on our profit on a slow year. On a good year, we have a little bit more of a cushion. So depending on weather, we always adjust our staff, but it's definitely, that's one of the issues I've seen over the last few years. We're weather dependent on our revenues. We're looking at a $1 increase for our daily entries. That would raise our child and senior rate from resident to non-resident by $1, so that'd be $2 to $3. Adults, $5 to $6, and our non-resident fees would be our child and senior from $3 to $4, and our adult $6 to $7. Our annual membership would raise the $75 for non-resident to $95, and then our resident membership from $85 to $115. We have a pretty good deal. It's a carload, and it's per household, that membership, so it doesn't matter which car you use. It's been used fairly frequently. We've increased from 96 memberships to about over 240. So we've seen a lot more use of our memberships, and it's great because we know we're guaranteeing people a spot. They can pop in anytime, whether it's the mornings or evenings. It's a really good deal. So that's my proposal.
Did you on the yearly one? Is there a difference between resident and non-resident? Did you say? I missed that one.
Yes.
For membership or for daily?
Membership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would
that one's
increase,
going up to 115 from 95.
So resident would be going up. Resident would be going up to $85, so just a $10 increase, and then non-residents would go from 95 to 115.
Okay.
So $20 increase for non-residents, which is the bulk of most of the stuff.
I have a question while he and Nate are talking. There has been a...
Turn it down, I hope.
You have to do it down. You have to do it back there, not over here.
Joe, there's been a $500,000 investment by the citizens of Raymond through the bond, and probably with interest. And I'm hoping that we can tonight decide to not go up on any of the residents, because they have skin in the game. They've already spent $500,000, and go up on the non-residents, the difference. It might free up a few spots for the residents, but certainly we should take that into consideration when we do these fees. And I think it's important that someone realizes when we did it, it wasn't just to make the park better, but to maybe help out. So if you're not opposed to that, would you consider that, or would the board consider not going up on any of the residents because of that $500,000 investment?
Well, the question I'd have there, Joe, is how much differential are we allowed to charge resident to non-resident under the state setup on that?
I believe there's no
I thought there was
laws or anything that I think there's no real true difference on fees. I think it's
I thought I know they allowed a different, but I thought there was a limit on how much that differential could be.
The rule was the residents have to be cheaper.
yes,
that's
I
what I
believe
believe.
it's more for the residents. So I mean I have no
Give the non-residents
proposal to that
$2
to make
raise.
it cheaper for residents.
I mean, I read the whole thing, it said.
And I was on the board, and I don't remember it either. That's why I'm recommending the money you need to make. Instead of going up $1 on the residents, we just go up on 2 on the others. And the adjustment's still the same amount. It just shifts to the non-residents because of that $500,000 investment. I think it's reasonable.
Dennis, when the whole board, I'm sorry, when the whole board we had that whole board,
Yeah.
that wasn't the one that did it. It's the state actually came down when they were talking to us, because we were looking to put a playground or something else down there. That's when they said Raymond, the whole point of it being here is for Raymond residents to get it cheaper. And that's what they wanted to
Yes.
see. And it wasn't that way when we had that board before. It was the same. Yeah, so he made sure that, no, that is one of the conditions, that Raymond has to be cheaper.
Yeah. Well, I'm
But
sorry,
there wasn't-
what literature they gave me when I got on the board didn't say that we couldn't do this.
No,
So,
right,
in fact,
right.
it's the
Well,
opposite.
the state is actually saying yes, they have to.
I think it's reasonable to make that adjustment.
So what are you asking?
So
You're
what
asking for to keep it at
You're
2?
proposing that for the resident, you keep it at the current
Keep it the
fees,
same and
but
put the
on
other $1 on the
non-resident,
non-resident, $2 on them, yeah.
Yep.
Same amount of income, and I have a hunch it'd be even more income if we do that.
So 2, it would
I would
stay at
pro-
residents at 2, and then the non-residents would be 5, correct? For like a child?
No.
Yeah, because,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, because it's normally now the 3 and the 4.
Go 2 to 4,
You're saying, you're staying with the current fees for
5,
resident,
yep.
and you're going
Yes.
to propose fees for the non-resident.
2 to 4, because they go up $2.
No, but
I'm
someone just said you pop up
3 to
another $1. So are we going up $2 on the non-residents? Or
Yes.
Yes, that's what, yeah.
$0 on the residents.
Right.
$2 increase on the non-residents.
So what we're staying at, $2 residents, the current fees, and we're jumping up, like for a child, it won't be 4, it'll be 5.
Yep.
And as far as adults go, the
No, it'll
resident would
be, it won't be,
the resident would be 5 for adult, and it'd be 8 for the non-resident.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Because you're taking the first
Yes.
current fees resident, and you're jumping up an extra number of non-residents.
No, it'll be,
Yeah.
it'll be 9.
No.
It's only $1 jump.
Oh,
It'll be
Seven,
it'll
eight,
be
9.
5 for current and 9 for non-resident. It'll be 2 for senior, 2 for
No.
senior, and 6
We'll
for
let Joe do the
non-resident.
math.
It's very simple math. It's $2.
I know, but he already went up one, so that's
Yeah,
why
it'd
I'm
be
saying
eight-
it'd only be one
it'd
more.
be $8 for non-residents.
Yeah.
Oh, on the,
8.
on the
'cause-
one that's already there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
Teresa's right.
right. All right, so I'm going to make a motion that we
Now,
approve.
what about on your annual membership? You're bringing that up.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I would just, I think that's great for residents. We keep that the same. I mean, looking at the data, I mean, that's not the impactful piece. We have about 86 Raymond resident memberships, and we have about 450 resident daily users for that season. So the more impactful piece is the non-residents. The membership is around 165 non-resident members, and then for daily entries, we're at like 17,000. So I would even propose just sticking with that proposed fee increase for the non-residents and keeping Raymond residents the same.
On just the
75 and
annual,
150.
on just the annual, Joe, is that what you're talking about now?
Annual and daily fee.
Yeah.
For residents?
We can adjust next year if we look and it's we need that non-resident fee $1 more.
So and for annual membership now, no change for resident and also no change for non-resident?
No, that's going up.
No.
Keep non-resident. I would make that change for non-resident. at
Wait a minute. Joe, do you have your numbers in front of you?
I have last year's.
Well, I mean, okay, so right now it's for, if you're looking down the line, child is $2, current, adult is $5, seniors is $2, and annual membership is $75. We're gonna keep that the same, and then over to the proposed, we're gonna go child is $5, adults. No, because you're adding one.
No.
That's already added.
Oh, you want to?
He's saying go with the proposed, so go 4, 7, 4,
Okay, I didn't hear that part then.
115.
So then we're going 4, 7, 4, 115.
Right.
And you don't want to go up that extra one, okay?
Yes, I think a $1 increase per year would be probably best, and then come back and look at
Just raise the snack shop.
look at our numbers.
Okay, so I make
Just sell candy
I
bars
make a
for $1
motion
more.
to approve the current fees as we just discussed.
Is it a second?
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried.
I'm just doing paperwork.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Joe. Next item.
Go back to work now, Joe.
He's going to the pool.
A quitclaim deeds.
And that
Sue, do you
is,
know-
a gentleman came in and paid off all of his taxes, and this is someone that was on a plan with Sue. So he has two, or not two parcels, you'll see that there's two quitclaim deeds. And that's because he was on one of them, and he and his ex-wife were on the rest.
All right, so a motion to approve the main short form quitclaim deed without covenant for Nancy L. Mash and Nelson Mash, map 077, lot 021, book 34,141, page 23, book 37,079, page 276, book 35,064, page 314, book 38,553, page 30, book 35,913, page 99, book, 39,673, page 102.
I second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Okay, the second one, a motion to approve the main short form quitclaim deed without covenant for Nelson Mash, map 077, lot 021, in book 40,312, page 259, book 40,937, page 274.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next item, consideration of traffic calming signs. Remind people, at the last meeting, we asked Nathan to go out and do some additional research and whatnot on that, so.
Well, as you can imagine, there's no less than 7 million of these things on the internet and all over the place. I narrowed it down to a couple of companies that we've dealt with in the past. One of them is Permaline. They suggested a company called Traffic Logistics out of Canada. These things run anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 on the low end, depending on what you want, and they can get up into $7,000 to $8,000, depending on, again, what you want. We've got one of these on a trailer mount. That's the unit that we have right now. It works pretty good. You can drive up to it with a laptop and download it with Bluetooth abilities. And these also, this one we have doesn't have this, but the new ones do. They're a cloud-based system. You could obviously pay, I think he said it was $1,200 or $1,300 a month. And you have a limited amount of signs that you can put on that cloud base. Or you can just go with the Bluetooth system. So it's down to what do you want? What do you want to get out of the sign? What do you want it to say? Do you want it to just flash the speed limit? Do you want to slow down? Do you want a club to come out of it and club the cars by? There's a lot of options out there. Missile, yeah.
So I don't know if the rest of you guys got this or not. I received an email today from, where is it? A company, his name's Paul Kenny, and he is with Radar Sign, senior sales consultant. Did you see that?
Yep, since I started looking at this, I probably get 10 or 12 emails a week.
So I mean, I didn't know if that was something. There's a 15%. There's all. It actually shows all different kinds of signs. Yeah.
I would, if you're going to buy a couple of them at that price mark, I
didn't see
We've
what the
had
prices
really
were.
good luck with Permaline. They're the ones that do all our street signs. They do the that's where I purchased the flashy stop signs over on North Raymond Road. They're easy to get hold of. If there's any product problems, they take great care
They're
of it.
close.
He was looking into a volume discount. He said, how many do you need? That's going to be the next question. How many do you want, and do you get a volume discount?
Where's his price break?
Don't know without knowing what the volume's going to be. He said you'd have to be 15 or 20 of them before you'd see a significant.
Yeah, but I mean, we literally had a situation in front of our house this morning where a daycare mom was churning. She was churning to come into my front driveway, and there was 2 cars behind her, and the second car back, pulled out to pass in the opposite lane and almost T-boned her with 2 kids in the car.
Fix that.
No, I know that. I know. Exactly. And it's not. I mean, Egypt Road, there's issues. The Cape Road, there's issues. They're everywhere. I get that. But I think the more that we have around, it just kind of reminds people.
There's a lot of studies out. There's a lot of studies that support them. There's a lot of studies that say they don't do anything. We did Egypt Road, Plains Road, and Main Street. And I believe Main Street was the fastest. It was 10 over the posted speed limit. Egypt Road, I believe, was 44 on an average, I think it was.
On average, yes.
If you sit and watch the sign, the portable sign, this is a very small sample, too. You'd see cars come up on it, you'd see them nosedive trying to stop, and right after the sign was gone, they accelerated back up to speed. There is, I believe in slower developments, like on Main Street, I think it would be beneficiary, because it's going to get the people that are cutting through there, and that's probably your biggest speeding problem, the people trying to cut through to get onto 121. Again, it's back to what do you want to do with it?
I mean, ideally, if you have the ability to be able to move things around.
Yeah.
I like the trailer mount one.
That's what
Then you can try an area, then move to a different area, try see where you get results. I mean, and at some point we'll get some results from the Casco study on what's kind of working from there to get more of a down road solution. So I mean, we're looking at taking some steps to get there, but I think there's some benefit to being and I read the email that Peter had sent out. And yes, you can move those ones that are on posts and whatnot. So I mean, I think it's important that whatever we do, we have the ability that we can shift them from place to place as we start to see where the biggest impact is.
The trailer's a lot easier to move. You can move that in, it's literally back up, put it on the trailer ball, and tow it to the next spot. That sign is actually designed to either be on a trailer, what we did, we made the trailer, or put it on a post. The couple of towns that I talked to, they don't normally move them around once they're permanently mounted. He said there's another whole study on that, what happens, what can happen. I guess if it was my decision, I'd like to buy 2 for Main Street, because that seems to be the hot spot, and maybe another one on a trailer, so we'd have 2 on a trailer and 2 down on Main Street.
Well, I think the school district ought to be a hot spot as well.
Well, yeah, they've been
witnessed this all the time.
County's been sitting up there quite. The sheriff's department does. They take them in the winter, so they don't get clubbed by the plow truck. But the sheriff's department's been sitting up there.
No, don't they have the one on the pole?
Well, they've got. They've got the school zone sign, which picks it up on both ends.
Correct.
We've got to start somewhere, and I got a great spot in front of my house for one to sit down, and Teresa's got a good spot in front of her house.
Yeah.
They could be secondary. So that sounds selfish.
We got to.
Not in your house. You end up in a ledge.
11 to Levitt Road. So, I don't know about studies, whether it's positive or negative, but here's a study from Maine DOT that is strongly in support of dynamic speed feedback signs. as I sent the email to both the Select Board and also to the Budget Finance Committee. These pole-mounted signs, although there was some suggestion that they're difficult to move, the data I saw said you need a ratchet wrench to apply the bracket to mount it. And they're lightweight, and they take about 30 minutes. And absolutely, as Public Works Director is saying, they are less expensive than trailers. The studies I saw said half to a third. I'm wondering if the town manager or the Public Works Director have reached out to Maine DOT because they buy these things in bulk and will make them available to communities. Just maybe something that the leadership in the town could reach out and see if there are those capabilities to buy in bulk, because Maine DOT endorses them based on their study. I've also gone to great pains talking to this committee, to the Budget Finance Committee, to the Planning Board, and anybody that will listen, that my belief is that there is not any one magic bullet or fix to the problem with speeding in this municipality or any municipality in the state of Maine. But I do agree that we have to start somewhere. We can poo-poo this all we want. I am gratified to see that there's more state police and sheriffs around. I just don't know that we can guarantee their presence. Do we have to have 2 more citizens die? Is that what will encourage more policing in the town? I hope not. So I just bring this to your attention. It's not a large amount of money. In order to attempt to do something in the way of traffic calming, but it's certainly not the end point. There's much more that needs to be done. I guess what I'd just say is that these things are called dynamic speed feedback signs. DSFS is what they're called. Most of the studies that I saw said that you can see that they saw somewhere between a 5 to a 10% decrease in the speed. Although that's not a lot, the data shows that in those areas where they were employed, there were less accidents, there were less traffic fatalities. So arguing the data one way or the other, believing this or not, as far as it being effective, I would ask that Budget Finance and maybe the Select Board and the town manager looking at contacting DOT to see what's the best price we can get, because they're buying them in bulk. Thank you.
I'm ready to make a motion.
We have...
If the DOT is buying these in bulk, and if 121 and 85 are both state roads, wouldn't it be illogical for them to supply those to us for free?
That question has already been posted to the DOT, to Randy Ilian in Scarborough.
No.
The sign...
No response.
No response yet. The sign that we have was donated from the Department of Transportation. That was a program they had 2 years ago. To the purchasing department, I have not heard back on that question, whether they're going to purchase another bulk of them. We've gotten that sign. We've gotten a pedestrian crossing sign for Main Street that just came in a month ago or so. That we're going to wait till spring to put up. But yeah, that program's still available in there. But it's a bad time of year to go poking or asking for it. I'm sorry, not poking, but asking. They don't have any answers.
They could have some in storage that
they could have, yeah. Yes, they could. They could be saving. They have
rebuttal comment. just to add to that, correct me if I'm wrong, but the trailered versions versus the pole-mounted, the trailered versions provide a traffic hazard during plow season.
Yes, yeah.
So they're not year-round.
Correct. If you wanted to do this year-round, you'd want to do the permanent mount one. Trailer ones can tend to get in the way of plowing. And the cost of the trailer, I think we spent $150 on the trailer. You can get the trailer mount ones, can get up factory up into the $25,000 to $30,000. Those do a lot more than just traffic. They do messaging signs, information, stuff like that.
Well, I mean, not to say that we want to go on the cheap side, but I would much prefer to go on the lower side to start, to get, take that step first, see where the results are, and then we can build some more money into, to a budget or whatever to, if we want to go more areas and things like that, but, you got to take one step before you take two.
So how long ago did you ask for the?
It's been 3 or 4 weeks. They're slow to respond this time of year. They're busy as we are, but
yeah.
I'll chase them down again.
We can ask Nathan and Sue to get together, and they can reach out to.
Yeah, see if we can get cheaper or free ones again.
Free
Especially
or cheaper?
Free or cheaper.
Free is
but
cheap.
especially if they have the mounted ones, they're not using the trailer ones anymore.
That sign that we have was designed to be permanently mounted.
Right.
We chose to put it on the trailer. It was an option when I went up for the class. That was an option that they gave us, was you can put it on a trailer mount, this is how you do it, or you can put it permanently mounted on a pole.
So that one could go backwards anyway.
Yep.
All right, so that's an.
We've discussed this quite a bit. We've heard in the comp committee and citizens, and we've witnessed. So I think we're ready for a motion, and I'd like to make the motion relative to what the Public Works Director said, 2 signs for Main Street that are mounted, Bluetooth compatible, and 1 more trailer to be moved around to the other roads so that we have 2 portables and 2 that are attached to poles that can be moved later. That gives us a year round on 2 and 9 months on the other 2.
I would have to question that only until we find out what they can get. I mean, are you okay with waiting to see what they can get from?
Yeah, oh yeah, you could put the timetable and amend it today.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can chase down DOT. I found the best way to do is drive around Scarborough and stare them in the face, and it scares them a little bit from time to time, and I get more out of them.
But if we can, if they can't get anything, then or if they can only get 1, then yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to hear the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, you're, even at that, the most expensive one on the smaller scale was $100, I think it was. So $15,000 if you wanted to go 3 of them.
Even if we went with Main Street, though, still starting.
Well, we'd go 2 at Main Street and 1 with the trailer. If that's what you'd like to change it to.
I can get back. If you want to just wait, we'll get back to you guys. And
You all right with waiting 1 month?
I haven't heard a second. I think it dies without a second.
It does.
I have another question.
What did you do? All of a sudden, he raises his hand, and he's got a boo-boo on his hand.
Trigger finger.
Sean McKillop, 84 Main Street. I know this is consideration for traffic calming signs. Do you have any other suggestions for what Teresa?
On 85, that's going to be all DOT. They're pretty particular about what you can and cannot do on the roads. There's a lot of other things you can do that would involve engineering and changing the condition of the roads. We did see some slowing of traffic on the south side of Main Street when we put the curbing in. Anytime you crunch the traffic down, that helps some. It doesn't do a ton. The fog lines help. So it'd have to be more a specific spot, and what would you do there before I could really get a handle on it. We'd try to avoid speed bumps. Those seem to be just a big
If you
problem.
don't plow 85, they'll probably slow down.
No.
Yeah, I think
If you tear up the road, it'll.
I just want to ask that no matter what the solution is for, what you guys decide, not this be the only solution. I still would recommend police presence, upping the police presence still. I think that's more help out on those roads.
Discussion.
What's that?
Totally different discussion.
I just said that. I know. I'm asking that. I'm asking for consideration of that. So, and also I would ask that you include budget finance on that as well, so we know. Thank you.
I mean, as far as my road, I can call the sheriff and explain what's going on, and they'll sit hopefully at my house for a bit, and especially with the buses and stuff like that. So, I mean, if they're not out really busy. I guess I would just want to change Dennis's motion just a little bit.
Well, we're not changing, the motion wasn't seconded. So
exactly. That's why
what we're doing is we're holding it to the next meeting to get the information.
Ooh. Oh, we're tabling it?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Oh, all right.
Have at it.
McDermott, 2 McDermott Road. The only real solution to this is traffic enforcement. In my experience over time, seeing these signs almost everywhere, it slows traffic down for about 500 feet, and they pick right up again. The only solution is actually having traffic enforcement. Getting signs, to me, are like if you're having a rash of burglaries in your town, and your solution is you're going to beg people not to rob houses. Signs aren't going to solve the problem. The only solution is traffic enforcement.
Frank, can I ask you a question on that? What exactly do you mean, and I'm not being sarcastic by no means, on traffic solution?
Well, you're hiring a sheriff.
Okay, so now I guess I want to extend on that. So I know we've been hearing about like Airbnb issues and, marijuana and stuff like that. So if we hire a sheriff, what's this? I guess we know what we want to hire him for is the traffic. How do you not have him involved in everything else because he is the sheriff of town? And I am being completely serious about this because there'll be a lot of complaints, like someone's in my backyard, there's a dog running, the neighbors are being really loud. How do you narrow that down? And because we know what the focus of why we're hiring them is for, how do you stop that?
I don't know how you stop that. I think what you need to do is let everyone know that the reason we're hiring the sheriff, the main reason we're hiring the sheriff, is enforcing traffic rules. Things are going to come up, and he's going to have to do other things in town. But he knows, selectmen know, the townspeople know because they've been informed that his main job is enforcing traffic. You may find out after 6 months that he may not have to spend as much time enforcing traffic. Once you get 3 tickets, you might stop speeding. And then he may be doing some other things. But I don't know how you stop people from speeding without enforcing the laws.
Do you think that we might lose Cumberland County sheriffs because we have somebody designated for here?
No.
Okay.
Because you're going to hire a person and they're going to be working a certain number of hours in the week. They aren't going to be here 24 hours a day. He may be working mornings, he may be working afternoons, he may be working evenings, depending on traffic flow and where we're running into problems. But I look at the sign on River Road as you get down towards the bridge. You look at that sign, people see the sign, they slow down. By the time that they get to the bridge, they're doing what they were doing before they was the sign. I drive the speed limit. That may be new for me, but I drive the speed limit. If I drive from my house to 85, I will have 3 or 4 people behind me who are very anxious to get by me because they don't want to do the speed limit.
I just see the different things in here when we talk about having teeth in it and being able to, have a good bite into an issue that's coming up. And then if we hire a sheriff, that's why I'm just thinking they're going to be like pulled in all different directions. And can we legally, because we have a sheriff, stop him from going to an issue if we have for that?
I don't think you're going to stop him from going to an issue if it's an important issue.
Mm-hmm.
If it isn't something that's minor.
But to some people, it may not be minor. That's just what kind of goes in my head. So these are the questions that are coming up.
This is what you have. This is what the public needs to know if they're going to vote on whether to hire the sheriff. Is that in fact their main responsibility is going to be enforcement of the speed laws, and that there are opportunities. He may be doing some other things, but our consideration is to have him enforce the speed laws until we get to the point where people realize that. It's like Yarmouth. Nobody speeds in Yarmouth.
No.
They don't.
No.
I mean, everybody knows by the time you get close to Yarmouth, you take your foot off the gas and put it on the brake.
And they have a full-time police department.
Yeah, but their
taxes
true.
are way more.
But what
a department or one or two?
No, they have a department.
They have a department.
Mr. Chair, I don't think any of us are arguing what Frank said.
Oh, we're not,
Or
no.
what Peter says. I think what we're talking about here is the facts. And the fact is, if these speed signs reduce the speed to 5 or 10 miles, not 20, the recordings that the Public Works Director had was 10 miles over the speed limit except for 1 or 2 cars on Main Street. It seems to me, if it's 10 miles down that it has an impact, Main Street would benefit from it. I don't think Egypt Road will. I don't think 85 will. I don't think 121 will. So I would say that it's going to be a combination of what you're saying, Frank, and what Peter's
I
proposing.
have no problem with putting up those speed signs in the village. They're desperately needed in the village. And if it remains there, people coming down that road are going to know they're there, and they are going to continue to slow down. But that isn't going to happen on 85. That's not going to happen on Egypt Road. It's not going to happen on Raymond Road, Raymond Hill Road, nor on North Raymond, or on the Cape.
Go ahead.
I went down the Cape the other day, and we had someone pass us doing 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And this was 10 o'clock in the morning. And the ferry wasn't running, so it wasn't getting to the ferry.
So he's heading to the ferry.
I think there are many solutions. I think we have to look at them all. If you look what's happening in the state of Maine for accidents, every day you pick up the newspaper or you listen to television, there's a head-on, or there are 2 head-ons, or there are 3 head-ons. It's not going to slow down. People just do not, think about what they're doing. They're doing too many other things while they're driving. They're in too much of a hurry to get there.
Then I make a motion.
I have a.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty valid question. I don't know who has the answer to that, though, is if we do somehow get a share, 1, 2, or whatever, if we hire someone, if we lose someone else from Cumberland. I don't know how.
It'll be part of my motion.
It'd be, I don't know who we ask about that, but that's a very, there's no point in us paying for it as a town if we lose it. We already paid.
Sign in blood that they're not going to take away, because they're under budget constraints.
Right.
And if
We already paid
you
them.
hire someone on, their natural inclination is going to be
Well, they already
pull
have
someone back from
exactly.
there. So now you're back at the same number of people.
Same number of people, and we're paying for one instead of.
And not only that, but when they send someone to court, they backfill them. If we hire them and we send them to court, they're gone.
So when I first got on the board, and Frank, I wasn't being sarcastic. You think of all these different things that people may come up with and stuff like that. And when I first got on the board, Kevin Joyce did come talk to us, because that's one of the things that we had talked and brought up was a police department and seeing what it would be. And he did mention.
Contract sheriff,
Huh?
not a police department, contract sheriff.
Yeah. No, or get a couple of them in here too. And he had said, no, there would not be, because of how short and stuff they are, they would be pulling them more towards other areas. I mean, things have changed in 12 years, do you know? So
They're still understaffed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the opposite, though. I think
It's under.
worse.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Things have changed, so don't know what the answers are to that.
I'd like to make a motion to table this to the next meeting, at what time the Public Works Director can bring in more information of cost, and we can invite the sheriff to come up here, and Kevin will do it, and explain how it's worked in other towns, rather than talk about it. And therefore, we're moving forward, and we're going to at least have answers instead of redundant
Yes.
conversation.
Second.
Thanks, Sam.
So the motion is to table.
Yeah, table.
The rest, the rest is the sentiment that's
Yes.
behind it, which I understand.
Okay.
But the motion itself is to table.
Oh, then I'll have to make a motion for the rest of it?
No.
Okay.
So once we table the matter, it's
It's up to the next-
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we move on, yes.
So is there a second on tabling?
He seconded the table.
I second.
All those in favor?
Can I make one more quick remark? I understand the problems that the sheriff's department having, that all police departments having, of finding personnel. Every single police force in the state of Maine do not have enough police officers. If this isn't something we could do with the sheriff, would it be possible to talk to Wyndham and pay Wyndham to patrol our roads? That might even take care of some of the problems you're talking about. Might be possible to hire Wyndham to patrol our roads and enforce speeding.
They might want a little bit of overtime if they're not getting, overtime, whatever it is, if they're not getting all the hours down there,
But
yeah.
that's something.
Shared services, maybe.
That's something you could talk to them about. I mean, we keep talking about cooperating with each other. They're the closest police department to us. I see them coming up through here on a number of occasions. That might be something they might be willing to do. It would increase their funds and would solve our problem.
Bob had his hand up too. I don't know if we skipped over or he got tired of it, but.
Who?
Just to
Bob
pick,
Wallace had his hand up on the.
oh, go ahead.
Well, we can't talk about it
Yeah.
anymore because we.
So the motion, the tape, that this discussion is done.
No, I just wanted to
No,
piggyback.
this discussion is done.
Okay,
Because we tabled the matter. That's what I was just saying.
It's-
Yeah.
okay. Good idea, but you can wait for it.
We can.
I like it.
Okay, next item was consideration of appointment of a committee to review the plans and make recommendations for new public works garage.
I would like to put a committee together to take a look at the garage. I picked out 5 people that I think have got quite a bit of knowledge in this. It's kind of a wide variety of people. One of them is William Coppersmith. We probably know him as Billy Coppersmith. He owns the Fisherman's Net. I picked Billy. He's a Raymond resident. He's a builder. I hate to age myself, but he's quite a bit younger, and he's going to attract that younger group. Bill Hansen, William Hansen, he is the RSU 14 facilities manager. He's got a tremendous amount of experience in commercial buildings and obviously in doing what he's doing with the school. Craig Messenger, he was on the Raymond Fire Department, former fire chief. I kind of hope Craig will have some fire input for this whole thing. David Matherson, he is the Director of Public Services from the town of Bridgeton, also a Raymond resident. He's in the process of starting his process of the new garage, and I think he'll have some good input. Ted Shane, he is the Public Works Director for the town of New Gloucester. He is also on the Naples Select Board. He has been from start to finish on their new building, and I think he'd have some good perspectives of where we're going and what we're doing. I'd like to think that this would be 4 or 5 meetings, get a report back from them, and go to the next step.
So the intent would be to review all the work that was
Correct.
previously done by Spago Technics.
Correct.
And the firm that did the needs assessment.
Correct.
That was a separate group from Spago Technics.
Correct.
And then come back with recommendations on whether that looks reasonable to go to the next step or whatever.
Correct.
I'm in favor of a committee done the same way as we just set up last month for the school. Everyone puts in an application. I would be opposed to anyone from out of town sitting on a committee that would vote recommendations in that's going to cost the taxpayers money. I prefer local residents as part of any committee, and I prefer the system that the Select Board set up last month when Sean was trying to set up a different committee and everything, and we said we'd put out the applications, take the resume, and decide. As opposed to, I mean, with all transparency, I did talk to Craig, and he called to tell me that, you know, that the Select Board had asked you to set up a committee, and I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to you even making recommendations, but I think we have a system that works, and it would behoove you, I think, if you're going to try to pass something, to go through the same process as the other buildings.
I guess I just want to put in on this. I mean, I didn't know this until I saw this on here. I don't think either one of our committee members should be on it because I think we should be totally let neutral people that don't really have a horse in this race. But I would expect people to be on the committee that has some knowledge and some information to give. Me being on a committee, like if I wanted to be on this committee and going in there would be like no help to you. I was taking a hammer to a scraper the other day and I thought my husband was going to lose his head because I was abusing a tool. So you need people on it that are going to be, but these people are from Raymond.
Some of them are, yes.
Yes, and so we do have some people in there. We have some people that have, just from looking at this list, and again, I knew nothing about this. And I would say that we need people with the background history.
That's what I said.
Pardon me?
That's what I said. Let them put out the advertisement, let citizens put in their resume, and then pick from there. That's exactly what I said.
Sorry. For some reason I didn't hear, I'm sorry, I didn't hear, yeah, sorry. Sorry, Dennis.
I kind of like the mix a little bit because these are people that have built some in other towns to give insight to us, and then this town people are going to make the final decision, but this is more of a committee giving us information, like how it worked over here, how it worked over here. We have some Raymond residents. If we don't have one. We haven't built one here, a public works building, so we're going to be taking people from just the town that don't have any say. Like this guy that's already built one or was a part of it on the select board is decent, or somebody in a different town. I'm not saying these people even have to be there, but I like the fact of another town person who that has already gone through the process from start to finish. They know the good and the bad. They can bring in some
I agree.
stuff to that.
I agree. And that's what we did. We had people come in from out of town that had experience to talk and present to the committee. You want that interest in the education, but not as a voting member.
Well, this isn't really going to...
No, they're not voting.
They're not voting on anything.
They're going to come back.
This is a committee. They're just giving us information. Yeah.
Let me read it. It says to oversight committee to review the needs assessment and the draft plans and make recommendations.
Right.
So that's
they're making recommend. These group of people are gonna.
What part are you opposed to following the committee setup that we did last month to this one? Why can't we use the same system as we did it for the school?
We might be able to, but that only is encompassing Raymond residents, you're saying?
No, these people could still come in and speak and talk about it.
Well, you just said that they
You just said no on Raymond residents.
Come in and put their application. That's the part.
But you can bring these people in to testify and explain what they went through and everything to our group of people, which is what we're doing with the school. They can bring people in to talk about schools and what they've done. Joe talked about someone doing a church, and I think someone else in the citizens group said that they did a community center. We expect to bring outside people in to talk to people, but this is, the way I read this, is to make recommendation and present a final plan. Hello. That says they're making decisions.
They're not making any decisions. There'll be no decision.
I'm not reading that.
They're making I think this is saying that they're making a recommendation that then has to go to the budget finance and then has to come to the select board and then get sent to the people.
Yes.
These people right here aren't making the decision for our town on this building.
Then tell me why that would go any different than the school, where we have a group of people coming up and then a second committee.
Because with the school, I think we need all those different people. We need the kids, we need the parents, we need the rec director, we need all that because there's so many different aspects going into the school as far as different uses and stuff like that. And as far as these people go, they're going to look at the plans, according to what Rolf just said. They're going to look at the plans and they're going to say, tweak that right out of there and it'll save you this much money because this is what we did at our building. And it's not a matter of them voting. It's a matter of how did you guys come up to this? What did you guys do to change it, to bring it down? That's the way I'm reading this. Recommendations, because we can cut this whole thing smaller, or you can add here and it won't be as much.
I'm saying it's a hand-picked committee that the Public Works Director picked, as opposed to people from the town who may have some background. Dave Brown is an engineer. I've got 52 years in building, and I'm saying if it is for everyone to get together, assess, draft plans, and make recommendations, it should be set up the same way we did with the other committee. And if there's a reason we don't do it, I want to know why. I really do. I think it's important that we stay consistent.
What I'm saying is I'm not opposed, or I don't know half of these people's resumes. I'm looking at it for the past 3 minutes. But I like the idea that other people that have already done it in a different town are ones talking. Like I said, I don't care if it's these people or if we pick different other people, but I like that fact that it's moved around and it's not just people that have been here or had a conflict with this department or this building and are now trying to it's almost better to have people that haven't been so intertwined with it for all these years.
I spoke my mind.
Sam? What's your thoughts?
My thoughts are that this is a good committee, and what they will do is bring people in from out of town with experience and to get their take on what we're trying to do.
I think we all know
And so
what
I
you're trying to
think
do.
that this is a very well-picked committee. Yeah, I know several of them on there, and
I do too.
in fact, mostly all of them.
So are there people in here you don't think?
No, I'm talking about process, which is what cost the building in the first place. I think the process that we've laid out for the school, we have a principal that's here, he probably left, I don't know if Frank's still here, that set up a committee when they did the elementary school, was part of it. I certainly know how we handle the public safety building. We just heard how we're going to handle the school that we're about to get, if we get it. And it was laid out when Sean spoke about it. Fast forwarding into the committee from the comp plan, he was told, no, we're going to put it out for advertisement. I say if you're going to win the taxpayers over, and it was a very large vote against it, you want to do the same process so it doesn't look like the selectmen who were voted unanimous for it aren't saying take a hand-picked group and let's move it. That's what I'm saying, and I want it to be clear that that's how it looks. Craig would tell you that Nathan told him, the select board told him to pick a committee. So either the chair or someone did.
Well, this is the first I'm seeing.
But the point is, regardless, let's do the process the same way and let's make it better than the last time. That's all I'm saying.
The reason for the small group and the picking of the small group, this is a garage, it's not a school, it's not a fire station. It's a small square box. I wanted to do this as least expensive as I could. You're looking at another 50 to 60 to 70 grand is what I'm getting from numbers from our engineer. If we do a full-fledged committee like you're going to do, start all over again and redesign everything. We've got a little over 70 grand in designed and testing and for this building. And the direction I took on this was by the town manager at the time. Get the engineer, get it going, and get it in front of the board. We failed at getting it all in front of the board in time. So this is what we're doing now. We're going to try it again. I don't want to redesign it. I don't want to spend more money on engineering. I think that's a waste of money. It's bad enough it's at $6 million. Some of these guys looked at the plans on a piece of paper and said it should be bigger. Should be spending 10, 12 million.
No doubt.
I think that's crazy. I think that's absolutely crazy, Dennis. We're just working on trucks. You know, we're not building a building that people are going to be in for the school, education, the town office, or anything like that. It's a garage to put trucks in.
Nathan, you know my position. I told you from the very beginning, you need a wash bay and a larger door for a larger bay for the mechanic.
But we can't do that down here.
Yes, you can.
No,
I talked to the code officer.
No, we can't.
You can't.
We had a structural engineer look at that building. That front of that brick building down there, that's a load-bearing brick building. The columns, they go into the ground, they're into the foundation. That's all part of the support of that building.
Standalone building there.
No. You got load-bearing walls all the way around that, the front, the side, and the back.
So you talked to the code?
Yeah, back when we had the first meeting, I asked Nathan why he didn't look at that option, and he said code said he couldn't expand the building.
And which code officer did you talk to?
Chris and Alex.
Okay, so can Chris talk about that now?
I'm sure. Is that I'm saying that's not true?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying because they've already been told if you change the building at all, the structure, it's.
No.
What part of what discussion? We're talking about the building, correct?
We're talking about a committee formation.
Right, but he's the one that, so I'm just saying, let's go back with that.
Go ahead.
I'm done.
Thanks. Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I don't disagree with Nathan in the choice of the selection of the 5 people to be in this committee. What I would recommend to the chair, and it's his prerogative based on the bylaws of the select board, to appoint ex officios. And I would disagree with Selectman Sadak. I would say, given the history of this issue, and for the sake of transparency and communication, that there be an ex officio from the select board and an ex officio from the budget finance committee. I believe that they, whether they're voting or non-voting, that would be my recommendation.
Are there any votes on this?
No.
there aren't. So,
Okay.
so that isn't a problem.
Right.
So basically.
So are you saying add 2 more or in place of 2 people on here?
No, I'd say ex officios. If I understand the meaning of that, it's based on their position.
Yeah.
That's what ex officio means.
Right.
Therefore, based on the fact that, given the history of this issue in the town, the vote at the last town meeting, what I would consider to be heat on both sides of those committees that's been generated by this issue. One of the ways to kind of put that to bed a little bit would be to have a representative from the Select Board and a representative from the Budget Finance Committee on the committee so that there is a very clear understanding and communication between those 2 committees. Thank you.
And that's the reason why I suggested that, Peter, is that there was nobody on it, so there wasn't that conflict of interest because of this.
I think that's a good idea.
David Brown, 91 Tenny Hill Road. And as Dennis mentioned, I am a professional licensed mechanical engineer. I work in building construction. And I do have a lot of experience with garage-type places and things. So if you were to go in the other direction of how you selected a committee, or even if you wanted an additional person on the committee of select the people we've heard of tonight, I would be available to volunteer to be on that committee. And I would be interested in the committee not just looking at building a building, but also to revisit the needs assessment and the condition of the existing building and the engineering report that we've previously gotten. Take another look at that, talk about some other aspects, particularly whether or not you can add a building next to an existing building. Because in my experience, you can build a building adjacent, even right up next to it, as long as you support that building independently and the building doesn't go higher. If the building is taller than the existing building, you impose snow loads, drifting will happen, and then you will change the loading on the existing roof. But if you make it independent and you keep it at the same height, I believe, and I'm a mechanical engineer, not a structural engineer, so I can't give you that level of, licensed opinion here about that. But I do know a lot of people I work with who I could consult with. I could consult with people at my company who would just answer questions for me. And that's my experience anyway, is that you can do that without the other existing building would not prevent you from doing that as far as I understand it. But again, I could help you out with that. Thank you.
Karen Lockwood, 139 Mountain Road. And looking at this proposed committee seems rather limited with people with public works backgrounds. And I think it would be helpful, considering the process that we went through last spring with this building, of expanding this committee to include people of different backgrounds so that there is a well-rounded committee evaluating this and not limiting it and stacking the deck with public works people backgrounds. I think that it definitely requires an engineer to be part of this. I think that the codes officer, Chris Hansen, should be involved. It would be helpful to have Owen come back and participate with this committee to get his perspective and view of the opinions of the other people that are being proposed. And it might be helpful to have a contracts person involved in this with a contracts background. Having worked in the shipbuilding industry, our committees typically consisted of people from many departments to evaluate a project and come up with a plan of recommendation.
Sean McKillop, 84 Main Street. I don't know if you can feel the tension in this audience right now. My recommendation is just what Dennis said. Put it out there just like the Jordan Small Middle School. Would you be opposed if I was on that committee?
I would like to keep it as small as I can, but no.
Awesome. I already submitted my application on Sunday night. Sue, were you able to receive that?
I did.
Awesome. Thank you. Just a reminder that the yes count on the building was 221 and the no vote was 525. having a committee that is open to anybody who would like their input on it, I think it's going to be very important to get that number changed this time around.
Other discussion? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to go with the people that Nathan has listed, and then add one select board and one budget finance person, as Peter suggested.
Second.
Discussion?
I sure would have liked to seen a citizen like Dave Brown, who has the engineering abilities to be a part of it. And I don't know why adding another person wouldn't hurt while he's right here and volunteered. So that's my opinion.
We will have Owens on that with us most of the meetings.
Right.
I would think. He's an engineer. Bill Hanson from the school department is an engineer.
Also, an expert in HVAC. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Derek's like, which one are you gonna do?
I'm still up in the air with more people. I like the fact that there's other people, Raymond residents and others. I like adding the 2 people. I think that's important, select board and whatever. But I'm not opposed to picking other people, like whatever.
Then-
The way everybody, just saying.
While we're on motions, then I would like to make a motion to put Derek on that committee from this board.
On this committee?
On the garage committee.
Is there a second?
Do I get to say?
Is there a second? Sam?
No.
You don't want Derek on that committee too?
I'd like to be on it. I think I'm one person who's got the experience of being a clerk of works and saving the town $500,000 on overruns. Public safety.
I think the reason why I am voting Derek on it is because he's cool, he's calm, he's neutral, he doesn't have one way or other, and he calmly looks at all sides. That's why I made a motion for Derek.
Okay, then I second that.
And that's the only reason, is because he can look at all sides together.
You agree, Derek?
When is it? When? We don't know when.
You have to talk to Nathan.
I mean, time commitment wise, I would like to know what's up before
You
I
can
would
talk to
say
Nathan
yes,
about it.
but I'm not opposed to it, I guess.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor?
Put your hand up.
I don't know, I shouldn't even vote for, no, I wouldn't.
You can vote for yourself. Okay, that's carried. So we'll look at a,
Are you going to put a budget committee person on too?
not until I get a recommendation from the chair of the budget committee that you'll send to me.
That's what I was asking, I guess.
Because I will not speak for the budget committee.
Can I ask a question? Maybe should we put a questionnaire out to find out why this thing failed? That's a pretty big gap. That's 300 and some odd votes. A lot of what I heard for rumors was the cost. This is going to go up. If they were upset with 6 million, they're not going to be happy with 7 or 8.
I think it's a good idea.
So I'll answer that as a citizen and not on budget finance. We didn't know how much it was going to cost. As you know, we had an idea of $6 million because that's what we could bond. But I think that you heard my position was, if it was more money, I would be willing to put that more money in. However, we didn't know what the cost was, and I personally didn't want to see a building that was half built at $6 million. If you remember, 2 years ago, somebody said it was going to cost $2.5 million, which was very failed, very failed.
That was actually $3 million, and those prices were based on a building that had already been built.
No doubt.
And that was just a beginning point for me.
Okay.
The numbers that we have were engineered numbers based on.
All right, let me make a suggestion here that become a discussion item for the committee as far as their research.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
A second.
So, I guess my next question on this, since we are doing this, is I just asked her, we're gonna need to do, these are appointment of the municipal officers, is what it is. Do we have to vote for each person, or was that a vote to do this now, when we did it, when I said in my motion, the people that Nathan said, and then we did Derek, and we just wait for Karen to see who is
Well,
on.
we can do that, and we can add people to the.
Right, but do you want a separate motion for each of these?
No,
Okay, then we just sign them.
because we moved that and voted that.
And I'll make appointment papers for Derek and whoever the Budget Finance Committee puts forth to you all. And leave those by the back door and send out an email.
Okay. Next item is consideration of clarifying language in the personnel policy.
And for this, when you discussed the personnel policy last month, I was on one page, and I think all of you were on another about the vacation. And I didn't, therefore, I didn't make the changes necessary to make it match what you voted in the version that you signed. So I had to go back and fix that. And while I was, there were a few areas that the hours in particular that I had listed in the personnel policy worked for all except the fire department. And it was simple changes to make the wording fit the fire department too, because they do fall under the personnel policy. So since it was being looked at, again, to make a correction, I went ahead and changed on page 7, the definition of full-time is now 32 to 42 hours, because that encompasses the fire department's 42 hours. I changed the transition plan to match what you voted. I removed in the vacation time, in parentheses, up to 80 hours, because it's a little more wonky with the fire department, and that left it just 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, et cetera. So that's something they can deal with. I changed the way the amount of time is described, so it'll work across all the departments on page 17. And added things like equivalent to 1 work week, equivalent to 2 work weeks, et cetera. I also was informed by the library that I had completely left them off the organizational chart. And that was a definite oops. I had made that chart before the library came on, and I didn't notice that I was missing them. And then when public safety saw the org chart, they realized that that was one that Bruce and I had worked on 4 years ago, maybe? Yeah, and that may have been what they wanted at the time, but in reality, what you see in the plan is really what they have. And I took the time to put the Parks and Recreation org chart in the same format as the other two, so they match.
Motion to accept the corrections.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Next item, consideration of adding an update to the town board committee and committees and communications ordinance.
And this came about kind of oddly. It wasn't that I saw any burning need or anything of that nature. When I was out looking at other towns' personnel policies, I stumbled across one that was something along our line that looked like our ethics statement, so in title. So I, just being curious, looked at it, and I believe it was North Yarmouth, so I can credit them with allowing me to plagiarize. But I just felt that it was put very, very well with how, and explain very clearly how committees deal with each other, how they deal with the select board or the council, how they deal with staff. It just, I thought it was very, very well done. And I knew that we had a town boards and committees ordinance in the miscellaneous ordinances, and it didn't really have a lot of information, and I thought this would be helpful. So that was the reason I put this forth, not because there was any burning anything. I just literally liked the language.
Somebody had reached out to me, and they are asking why this was a town issue and not like an HR issue, well, not saying HR issue, as in probably policies or whatever. And I asked what they would suggest as something different, and it said I would have an HR person to facilitate any inappropriate behavior. I would also have someone whose responsibility it is to ensure immoral or unethical actions in any committee or town employees. And I wanted to make sure I got that included in.
Has this gone to legal yet?
No, it hasn't.
So I mean, essentially, all we are doing at this point is saying, essentially, to move that onto legal for review. It would then come back, and then we would have to schedule, because it is an ordinance issue, we would have to schedule it for public hearing. So.
Yeah, I didn't know if you would want this change done, or if you'd rather it was a policy as opposed to an ordinance, or if you don't like it at all and want me to stop looking at things that aren't pertaining to what I'm precisely looking for.
So I'm going to muddy the waters just a little bit, and since this would have to go out to legal, I would like to go back one step. I was making sure that paperwork was good to be signed. Is there any other policies or procedures, manuals out there in any other departments that you haven't seen or we haven't seen to be approved or not approved and sent to legal? Do you know what I mean? Like, does the library have one? Does Public Works have one? Does Rec have one? Does the public safety have one?
I know public safety does, and has some of its procedures, but other pieces are policies, and those need to be pulled out so they can be brought to you, because right now it's all in one document, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
But most of the policies pertain to procedures. Most. There are a few that.
Right.
That's the ones we really should go.
And I guess the only reason why I'm asking that is because we made sure that this one was all legal and making sure we're not conflicting with any of the things in either one, and especially with all the changes and any updated newer stuff.
So this would have to be in an ordinance because it doesn't pertain to it's above and beyond employees, is that?
We already had a town committees ordinance, so
Right.
that was why I plopped it in there.
Oh, so that's in there, I got it.
And that's it. If you would prefer it not to be an ordinance, if you prefer it not to be, that's what I'm really looking for is, do you want this added to the warrant, and do you want me to work on it? I didn't want to put too much money into it with legal or too much effort into it if it wasn't something the select board wanted to do.
I don't think we should have to have the town babysit it, and I'll be the first one to say that I am at fault for this. A lot of this stuff in here.
Keeps freezing.
And I think it should be more of a policy when you get on as a board member.
And I'd like to know what's wrong with ours.
I just thought it was a well-written policy.
And ours isn't?
That was really it. I didn't see this as fixing a problem or anything of that nature. I just thought it described everything very, very well. And I know that over the years, I've sent out at either the chair of the select board's request or the previous town manager's request even, notes to committee members reminding them that things need to go through the chair, and so that we keep everyone on the committee updated. And it just seemed nice to have it, something like that we do anyway, codified a bit.
Well, just to be on the public record, so anyone that's listening will know, we've got a 9.5-page bylaws and policies for the Board of Selectmen in the town of Raymond. That's been approved.
That's been
We're
approved,
talking
you
about,
said? I'm sorry.
it's been approved and amended in September 17, 2019.
Yeah.
And so I spent some time reading both of them, and I'm trying to I think this one is well-written too, myself, but I'm not a town manager, and I'd like to know why it was important to bring it back unless there's something wrong with here, with all the things we got going on. I mean, this is some major changes in here.
I just stumbled across it. I thought it was well-written. That's really literally all I've got. And that was all my motivation for this. I wasn't trying to supersede any other ordinance, and if it does, I apologize, I'll take it out. I thought it was a well-done policy for committees.
Well, I think if there's
As an overall.
maybe if there's some good parts, if ours is decent and this one's good, we can add or move around some and make it better. I don't know.
Or I can just withdraw my request, like I said.
Instead of scrapping one and adding another one.
Oh, I wasn't trying to scrap anything.
I'm wondering if we could add some of the stuff that we like to this, from this one to the one that we already have.
Well, there's
We could.
Instead of just.
This is really well-written.
Yeah.
No?
This one we have is really well-written. I went through it. There's nothing wrong with it. It tells us exactly what it is.
So I just asked Kim, I just said, well, where is it? And he says it's under the select board, and there's bylaws for the select board, but there's not bylaws for budget finance.
There's an ordinance for that.
There's an
I'm sorry,
ordinance
what?
for that.
They have an ordinance,
They have an ordinance.
and that's well-written.
Okay, I'm actually I saw the ordinance, that's why I was just trying to find where it was.
There is no.
Yes, you're right. It's well written.
Yeah.
Because you run into.
It's not been a problem.
Select board duties are authorized under 30A, so that's why you have bylaws. The budget committee is an ordinance because it was created, it's not under 30A, so it was created by the town. So
Okay,
that's why that's an ordinance versus
Okay.
Bob has his hand up.
two different.
Bob.
Hi, I've had my hand up since before the last vote, and I was looking at the organizational charts for the town, and since I've lived here and I'm just finding this out, we actually do have an HR person, yet there is it's nowhere in sight on the organizational chart.
It is on the organizational chart under finance. There's a deputy finance person / HR.
I'm looking at the Appendix C. And it's where?
Under finance, it reports to
Under
finance.
finance.
And there's a deputy, and the deputy is also HR.
Hold on, I've got to find finance. I don't see it.
I believe it's on the left.
Way to the left, it's under
Oh,
treasurer.
treasurer, I'm so sorry,
Under
treasurer.
treasurer.
I'm doing this from memory, Bob.
Payroll HR clerk.
Yes.
So the HR clerk actually isn't specifically for human resources. They have other things that they do
Yes.
for the town.
That's correct.
And who is the oversight for the entire town, including the select board has their ordinance or whatever, and why is the HR way down there, not on top, is my question.
That position has always been a combined position, or has been since it came to be. When was it? Was when Rita was here,
Rita.
so.
Yep.
About 8 years ago,
We put
maybe.
her in.
And who is given the oversight to all the committees? Who goes to each committee and watches what happens in all the committees?
There isn't someone that does that.
And why wouldn't there be?
Well, I would ask, why would there be? And the HR is for employees.
The HR is for employees. However, nothing against what you, Sue, or what you wrote, what you took. It's very eye-opening. However, to me, coming from the corporate world, it doesn't seem like it's skewed to conflict resolution. And sometimes the boards have conflict resolutions that maybe need HR input.
They may
That's all
need
I'm
a
saying.
mediator. I'm not sure that it would be necessarily the town's HR that would perform that function.
No,
No, is that not correct?
that's correct.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
The HR function is for the town employees. Boards are not town employees.
Okay, so the oversight for the boards is done by the boards themselves. Is that correct?
That's correct. And if they have issues, then they can come back to the select board. If a board has an issue, then it can come back to the select board. Because ultimately, the select board has appointed, even, some of the boards, if they're set by ordinance, the chairs of the boards are supposed to control the boards.
Okay.
If there's an issue, then they can bring that back to the select board.
Okay. Thank you.
Peter.
Yeah, Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. First and foremost, I would be the last person to, actually, I applaud the town manager's attempt to put something out that would enhance civility amongst the boards and the committees in the town. And so I applaud that effort. My observations are this, that as I read through this, and it's 4+ pages, that would go on a town warrant that arguably some people might read, some people might not read, but people will vote for it. That's just my own opinion. What I'd say is that as I read through it, what I found is that what was contained in those 4+ pages was the town of Raymond Code of Ethics for appointed and elected municipal officials, 1 page. There was references, copious references to MRSA, Maine Revised Statute. There was select board bylaws issues, and there was the organizational charts as far as chain of command. So I guess my question would be, rather than
Peter, just the org charts were in the personnel policy.
Thank you, thank you. But I did review those as well. And so in the organizational charts,
Clearly.
There were also answers to a chain of command that basically were addressed in the draft from North Yarmouth. And so I guess my question would be, is it necessary, since we have all of these documents, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, but what I did have is experience of chairing or co-chairing a committee recently. And when it came to a question of should we adopt Robert's rules, what I found out in my research was that if we're a committee that does not have bylaws, then it defaults back to the select board. And therefore, the select board had adopted in its bylaws that Robert's rules would be used. And therefore, the bylaws of the selectmen would cover every committee that doesn't have its own bylaws.
Well, actually, there was actually, and I don't have it right here, but there was an action taken by the select board, and I think it was 5 or 6 years ago.
To approve Roberts.
That stated that all committees would operate under Roberts unless the ordinance dictated differently.
Sure. And I did run into that afterwards, Mr. Chair. I guess the thing is, the ignorance was that we went ahead and voted that we would basically follow Robert's rules. And I believe it was a unanimous vote on the committee I co-chaired. But I guess to my point is that what I would recommend is that we look clearly at those documents, the organizational charts, the select board bylaws, the Raymond Code of Ethics, and Maine Revised Statutes that are contained and referred to, and let that be our guidance as far as how meetings are run, and it addresses everything from being civil and respectful to how you remove a member for a cause. And lastly, I'd recommend that the town requires that the Code of Ethics that addresses the bulk of what's in those 4.5 pages, every committee member, including myself, when I was appointed to a committee, was required to sign this. And my recommendation would be that not be a one-time, that annually all of the committees and all of the board members and committee members would review this one-page code of ethics and sign off on it that they've read it and they understand it.
They do every time they're sworn in.
Yeah, I think he was saying every year instead of
Every year.
For some committees, it's every year because it's an annual appointment.
Sure.
And for others, it's 3.
So just make it across the board, that it's every year, every committee member, every board member. I know that the board up here, they're more than 1-year term. So it would be helpful for them to refresh their memory, as well as everyone who serves on a committee or a board. These 15 very straightforward points on how to be respectful, how to conduct yourself. Thank you.
Hi, Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. I too read everything. You can see I printed off your entire packet. And I guess I agree with Peter because I did see that there are bylaws and code of ethics. And one of my concerns was like, why we have a lot going on in Raymond. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why spend legal fees to like go through all the legal stuff if it's unnecessary? That it seems to me that we could use those monies other places. I also kind of noted the org chart, which Bob and Peter said, that you said was a personnel policy. And then sort of circling back to what you said about HR only covers the town employees. It is a bit confusing when you read through all these pages because you have town boards, committees, and commissions, and HR covers only the employees. Some of your committees are voted on by voters, others are appointed by you guys, and then, that come from volunteers. So I'm not sure how you police that. And so that was a bit confusing to me. And then the other issue was some of this is subjective. And so without that person that Bob was sort of recommending, like who is going to all of the meetings to sort of be the police that you're following the ethics, then you're getting into sort of the subjective and the he said, she said. And, whereas some of these ethics are codified, like harassment is a real policy, that's a legal definition. So I was a bit confused by it. It doesn't interest me either way, whether you do it or not do it, other than the fact that if you're making it be an ordinance, that you do have to spend the legal fees, which I don't like. And then also in terms of some of the language in here, I was a little bit concerned of how that applies to people who are volunteer citizens versus people who are paid by the town. It seemed like a disconnect. So that's just my 2 cents.
What's the board's pleasure?
Make a motion, we stay with what we have. It's not broken, I don't want it fixed.
I would second.
Okay. Yeah. I just had to
That's
think through. I just had to think back through.
I say we stay with what we have currently.
So there's
Motion and a second already on the table.
Hmm?
There's already a motion and a second on the table, so any discussion?
discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Next item, public comment.
Grace Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I just want to touch on a couple of topics. As far as committee meetings, whatever the committees are, I'm hoping that they are posted on the calendar. They're open to anyone attending and listening in, or maybe even having time for public comment. I think Comprehensive Plan Committee often had time for public comment at the end of their meetings. So for the newly formed committee about the Public Works building, I would hope that that is the same process for that. And as far as traffic goes, despite all of the discussion that's happened, I feel compelled to still bring that up as a topic. I do appreciate the time that has already been given to discussing it and some forward movement on the issue. I just hope that that continues, that not be, once maybe there are some signs purchased and placed around places, that be the end of the discussion. The speeding that goes on, Mr. McDermott mentioned before, his route that he takes, it's constant. I hear it when I'm just sitting in my home. I hear people that are going way, way too fast down Raymond Hill Road. I know for a fact they're going too fast on Egypt Road, the passing, et cetera. So whatever else can be done, additional signage down the road as budgets permit. There's so many things that could help, even just a little bit, and possibly prevent a tragedy. And I would hope that it continues to be an item that this board continues to pursue, and that the budget committee continues to pursue as well. As you're driving around, you're seeing even just signs that are saying no passing when it changes from a place where you could pass to a place that you couldn't pass. Is everybody going to pay attention to a sign? No, but it's a reminder that could help. Any of these types of issues, I am hoping that will continue to be discussed by this board. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. In the middle of December, the town received notice from the State Planning Board that the comprehensive plan as submitted on the first draft was accepted without revision. I'd like to thank everyone who participated in the town. I'd like to thank support from all of the committees and boards in the town. And we look forward to the next phase, which I believe will be a review by the SelectBoard and for any additional changes or revisions, and then did it go to the town meeting in June, and hopefully the town will vote favorably to accept it. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. I'm just circling back because when you closed it last time. So Frank had said something about the Wyndham Police, and much to my chagrin, obviously Raymond and Wyndham are part of RSU 14 together. And I'm just wondering, with respect to, because we share school buses and such, like would the Wyndham Police, like don't they sometimes follow the school buses to ensure safety and things like that? Like, would we even have to pay extra to, I'm just throwing it out there because I'm always trying to save money as an accountant. But just like if they're already doing stuff with the school buses, the Wyndham Police, maybe we could get them for less money if they came and just followed the school buses because they're RSU 14 property anyway. I don't know. That's just a crazy idea I had. But the good idea that I had was for Nathan. So that was the crazy idea. But the good idea, because you asked if you should do a survey, and I was thinking, what if you did a workshop like the comprehensive plan did with all of our little
cotton balls,
our little puff balls or what? But if you
or Skittles,
if you did a workshop, and then you could get public, and then you'd find out why people voted yes or voted no, or get their feedback or whatever in real time as one of your little meetings, sort of expounding on Grace's idea of just making sure that all committee meetings are open to the public. So that was my good idea. Thanks. And thanks to Peter for the comprehensive plan stuff, and to all of you for putting up with me. You opened a can of worms when you went after my backyard with the solar, so now I'm going to be here every month and just kind of being an informed citizen so that I'm a better citizen. And in the future, I'll be volunteering for stuff. My last one's going off to college in the fall. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Keep this.
Tax season.
Just keep this really quick. I have a pretty good open rapport with the Wyndham Police Chief. I can give him a call and see if I can open up a dialogue on this sharing police services. If it's something that everybody'd like to look into. Thank you.
Other public comment?
Yeah, hi, Brian Walker here. I can't find my little raised hand, so I apologize. I just wanted to say that I know the discussion in December, we talked about the referendum vote versus an in-person. I think the dialogue that happened tonight is a good example of where the interactions of people can be helpful in coming out with a solution that maybe wasn't exactly what everybody walked in thinking they wanted. And it's through that cumulative thinking through different ideas that can come to a different place and just hearing different perspectives. So just a thought, I guess I'm putting in my, my little plug for potentially trying out the meeting the upcoming year as an in-person meeting. Greatly appreciate it. And thanks for everybody's participation tonight.
Other public comment? Any selectman comment? Oh. You gotta jump up faster.
So what can happen if you move too fast. So.
Oh, man. Wow.
I'm not as young as I used to be. Again, David Brown, 91 Tenny Hill Road, and I didn't come here tonight to hear about the neighbor across the street as I was informative, but heard a lot about that, so you're familiar with my address from tonight. But I would like to tack on to what was just said about the public town meeting. Now, I haven't been much of a volunteer. We've been here 25 years. The primary thing we used to do was go to that town meeting every year. We would read up in advance. We would go with questions. I would sometimes get up and speak, and my questions would be responded to. And that was a very informative process. And the people who voted were the best informed people in the town. As opposed to, I really don't think that the people who are voting, and as was mentioned tonight, people will vote on something that looks good. As an example, that I came here mostly because of that policy manual at the end, because I read through that and there was a lot about that I disliked. But one of the things was that it more than once said that committee members needed to be fully informed. They needed to come and not decide ahead of time. They need to come and listen to all the pros and cons. That's exactly what a public open town meeting does, and that's what doesn't happen in the current situation. People can try to watch the videos, but as we see tonight, we're at a meeting that's a 3-hour meeting. Very hard to watch these videos of meetings like this and glean without losing attention span, glean what was actually decided and to really get the meat of things. I would really urge us to go back to the public town meetings. I know they stopped around COVID, and that was reasonable, fully reasonable, but I think the people of the town really need that to make us a better town. Thank you.
Anyone else slow to get up? Selectman comment.
I have two things I'd like to say. One, it's exciting. I was on the comp plan, as you know, in '05, and I thought we did a fairly good job. But I was so impressed with the energy spent to gather the information, to find out the group. And I've always believed, very spiritual, what's good for the group is good for me. And you guys did that job you should be an example for other towns. I've heard about Bridgeton's thing and some other ones that are going on, so I really want to thank you, and I'm excited to see that group of young mix. I say young mix, it's young and old, but it was a good mix. So thank you for the energy and what you did. It was really fantastic, and I hope the board takes every consideration into what we're thinking.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Dennis. I would just tell you that two members of the Bridgeton comp plan called me up.
Yeah, I've got friends there too. The second thing I'd like to say, and I want to say publicly, is last two meetings I've had 100 pages, I'm over 100 pages and over 80 tonight, and I'm receiving an agenda and a e-package on a Friday night to come here Tuesday. And one of the things that says in the bylaws is I have to come in informed, and I promised that when I ran for office. I'd like to see the select board, and I'm saying publicly so I'm on the record, make it the Friday before, a week before the Tuesday. So I have, as a citizen and as a selectman, I want the citizens to have a chance to see what's on the agenda more than 4 days, and I want time to read it. And I'm asking it because I've asked other things, like putting a little synopsis in on all the agendas so that people know what it's about. But I figure if I say it publicly in the comments, it might happen, as opposed to the 4 days or the Friday that was in the plan that the town manager offered. So that's my comments.
It used to be done that way.
It did, it did.
Yeah, yeah.
It was going to be 4 days in the policy, though.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yep.
Other comment? Sam?
No.
Teresa? Okay, next item, town manager's report and communications.
I'd like to confirm the dates for the upcoming next two meetings, February 11th and March 11th. As long as you have no conflicts, we'll stick with those. And other than that, I just have the upcoming budget meetings. I listed them all out for you here.
I can't do March 25th. I can't do March 25th and those budget meetings.
And that's the warrant article review and recommendation by the select board.
I don't know if I can do that.
So we'll have
I could bend over, I'd help.
Did I lose my phone?
Stand up.
I can't do, I don't think I can do the 11th,
March 11th?
February.
February 11th?
Hold on, I'll tell you in a minute.
It's the second Tuesday.
April 3rd is my birthday.
No, I'm good with
But I'm
that.
here anyway. This is my party.
I'm leaving the, I'm good with the 11th.
Okay.
And I can't Zoom, I'll be.
Okay, so the.
Actually, I don't have birthdays
March
anymore.
25th.
We can't go later, but can we go, because I mentioned to Sue about it, about possible times and dates and stuff like that, so.
Well, March 25th 's already. Oh, that's that's budget.
So we've got.
Oh, that's a workshop. We need to be there.
No, that's our night that we sit and go over and
Yeah.
give our recommendations.
March 11th is, yeah.
Okay, so we
could do. We could, so you're out the 20, are you here that week or you're gone that?
I'm gone the 22nd through, I'll be back the 30th.
Yeah.
So.
And I think I was supposed, if I didn't bring the full, well, I can pull up the full schedule that I should do. Let me do that, otherwise I'll be misspeaking.
So.
Because we're cutting it too close to the 3rd.
Right, so we could go the.
So if you're looking at
Which one are we trying to move?
March
25th?
25th.
Yeah.
So,
March 25th.
let me see what's before it, so I can give you a range.
And we can't do the week before? Or it's just too many?
I mean, do it the 18th?
I hate not having a mouse. Let's see. So, the 14th is when I will be giving you the final warrant.
The 14th?
Yeah.
So the week of the 17th through the 20th.
So anytime after, the 14th is a Friday, so anytime that next week, you could move your meeting to that if you wanted to.
Are people available during the week of the 17th? Dennis?
I was daydreaming.
I noticed you were off.
Yeah, but you're back now.
What is it? We're moving it to what?
Are you available during the week of the 17th?
Of February? Are we talking about?
Of March.
March.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I have a March issue. Hold on. I'll tell you what it is.
I don't leave my house except to come here.
Yeah. I have 3 kids. March 14th. 14th I can't do.
Well, 14th isn't a meeting,
It's
that's
during the
just
week of the
me.
17th.
Yeah, 17th, 18th, 19th,
The only
20th.
one I can't do. I'm fine with that. I'm away that weekend. Or
Definitely not the
Friday.
21st. Not if I'm, yeah, no.
25th, you mean?
So we could do.
Not 24th.
We could do either the 18th or the 19th.
Which days are they again?
18th or 19th.
Is there anything else in here that night?
Switch
Wednesday,
20th.
let me
Switch 25th through the. Oh, what day? It's
18th is a Tuesday and
Tuesday. It's the week before. This
Okay.
would be moved up a week.
Yeah, the 18th sounds good.
She's just checking to see if there's any other.
Got to check the
committees in here that
calendar
night.
to make sure that works. March. And that would be fine because that's a Tuesday. The 18th is a Tuesday. The planning board meets on a Wednesday and so does budget finance.
Okay, so we'll move it to the 18th.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it'll be the
25th
11th,
to the 18th?
the 18th, and then April 3rd. Okay.
So that's a double arrow for me.
No other conflicts the rest
So,
of the, on the rest of the
February.
things?
On April 3rd, I'll be here, but I would like to have somebody bring some good wine. It's my birthday.
Oh, okay.
I'm all for that.
Have a party.
We can sit and go,
Oh, yeah, on the final warrant approval, he's going to be trashed.
Good idea. All right. If there's,
motion to adjourn?
Second.
all those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.
Great.